Hello, welcome back. Today, my friends and I are going to discuss the second book of The Wheel of Time, The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan. Um, Heads up, if you haven't seen any of our drink and discuss videos before, we do go into a ton of spoilers. They're usually really long, so we discuss a ton of things about the book. So if you don't want any spoilers for the book, go read the book first and then come back and watch the video. But with that being said, I hope you all enjoy as we drink and discuss. All right, we're back.
Dude, you said one. That's pretty impressive.
Part of the gang.
You
Oh,
learned
count.
backwards.
We're here to talk about The Great Hunt, Book 2 in the Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan.
What? Okay.
You guys
I didn't think of a
like
pro.
Oh shit, we've had all this time.
You've had all this time to think. We've literally been talking for
I know.
45 minutes now.
Yeah, saying save it for the review.
Save it for the review. Save it for the review. Anyway. Okay, let's talk. Well, we're going to start off with pros, Marcus. But Riker, you can go ahead and start. What is your pro, Riker?
Yeah, Riker,
So,
what's your
we-
fucking pro?
So, well, I mean, we've already been through this once, so can I just
Yes.
relist the pro? Okay, so my pro for this was how everything in this book led up to the ending. Sure, there's some plot points that are better left for later, but ultimately everything led to that ending that happened. Like, you saw it from the beginning, you're like, oh, they've got this thing. It paid off by the end most of the time.
I
And
agree
then-
with that.
The Shan Chan culture being a counterculture in and of itself and actually making me feel things while reading about it. Also something I greatly appreciated in this book.
Yeah, I agree with you about the ending. Marcus, I feel like you have disagreements about that, but I agree with. I felt like the ending versus the first book was a lot more impactful and like grounded within the actual narration and like set up and paid off throughout the entire story. Whereas in the first book, I very much felt like the Eye of the World was like talked about, but was just kind of like thrown
It was out of
in at
left
the
field.
end. Yeah, it was like the ending was just like left field, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
we're doing this, I guess. So let's go.
What's that reference from?
Out of left field.
Yeah. All right. So, so there's
Sports metaphor.
Well, isn't it? It's a baseball metaphor.
Thank you. Okay, good.
I played baseball. Thank you.
Yeah, but you didn't say anything.
Well, I thought like, never mind. Just go. What's your pro?
Solid.
You still haven't come up with-
Elaborate.
Okay, I liked the world building. I think we got a lot more world building, even though it's also going to tie into my negatives or my cons a lot. But a lot more world building happened. A lot more stuff that I think is going to pay off later,
Mhm.
which I like hearing about stuff that's influencing the world to begin with, like the Aes Sedai. They're all not together. They're all in different color groups, and that they're in conflict with each other. I loved hearing about that and learning about that. Oh yeah, we had a lot more better character moments. I think finally Perrin and Matt and Rand all kind of like separated a little bit more
Yeah.
from each other. They weren't like the same country bumpkin that we got in book one. And I think that in general, the new characters they got introduced, they were a lot more interesting. They had a lot more stuff happening with them than what was going on with book one. Book one was like, here's your characters. We're going on the adventure.
Yeah, the way
Even if the main characters don't want to go.
Yeah, I was gonna say the way I feel like book one is like this. The way I always describe it to people that are like asking about it is it's this classic like D&D party adventure story, and I feel like this is similar, but it polishes some of the rougher edges, especially I would say in regards to character. There's moments within this book that actually made me like, that's such a cool moment. Thank you for having this in the book.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Whereas
There were
like, in the
higher highs.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
as in
they're
the
a lot
first
more
book,
experienced with this adventure now.
yeah.
They've
Whereas
been through the ringer.
the first book too was just like very much like it was very much plot heavy, and I feel like this one still relies on plot quite a bit, but goes into character and like world building a lot more than the first book did.
A lot more motivations
Yeah.
happening in this book.
And we don't have
Yeah.
as much travel time. We don't have chapters just dedicated to time in between towns.
You're right.
We'll talk about that.
We'll get to that.
Yep.
Okay, cons. Biggest con. Marcus, you start. I know you want to rant.
Okay. So part of the world building, and I'm concerned going forward when it comes to world building, that I feel like world building in this book was a solution to plots, like plot problems. Example being, we got introduced to the sniffer, which is like an ability or a magic. I don't think we're entirely sure what it is yet, but we know what it does, but we don't know if it's magic or if it's an ability. Like, oh, we need to follow the Trollocs. What do we need? Oh, someone who can sniff out blood and trauma and death.
I would say it more as an ability.
Yeah, I would say an ability as well, not magic. But it was just like, oh, we need to follow these guys who stole the horn of Valir and the dagger. Oh, perfect. We have someone who's called the Sniffer who can follow them perfectly. My next point would be like portal stones. We need to go somewhere quickly in a short amount of time and get there immediately.
Yep.
But we also can't use the way gates, which were a plot convenience to me in the first book. It introduces something new to the world that's really cool and interesting, but also was just the perfect solution for what was happening in that specific situation. So I'm worried about that going forward.
So going off of the sniffer part, I feel like I don't.
They're a taster.
I don't know. I feel like I don't agree. I can understand that it's like, oh, this is a perfect solution to this problem. I agree with that part. But I think that one's such a minor thing because it's like you could just have a tracker, right? Like you could just have someone, like you just have like a tracker doing the same thing, so it doesn't bother me as much. The portal stones I completely agree with. I think the portal stones are a convenience of like, I designed the ways, but the ways are really dangerous, so I'm going to design the portal stones.
Which is different and only a male Aes Sedai / male channeler can use.
That's actually not true. They can be used by either of the powers. It's just that you need enough power to channel through it.
Oh, and the brown Aes Sedai.
Yeah, Varen doesn't have enough.
Varen
didn't have enough. Right.
Just sucks.
I mean, that's kind of mentioned. That's kind of mentioned in some of the books that like the Aes Sedai have been steadily losing their power over generations.
Yeah. It's almost diluting to a point.
Whereas like Egwene and like Nynaeve are supposed to be like more powerful.
Oh, and how convenient. We ran into one of them.
So, I do agree with you though. I think the portal stones are like, I really like the concept and how they're used in the book, but they're a plot device. They're a how do I get my people from point A to point B across the world?
Or just to be in front of the Horn of Valir because we can't catch up to the Trollocs.
Yeah.
My other con was miscommunication or lack of communication. It is a giant theme. And it's just kind of annoying to me.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Artificial conflict just for conflict's sake.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like the intent in the characters is important, like, because you're talking mainly about like the beginning where like Rand is like, hey, screw you guys, I'm going on my own.
I can't tell you why.
I can't tell you why.
You can't come with me.
Yeah.
That's a big problem, and I hate that trope in general, like being a jerk because, oh, I got the fucking fly. Being a jerk in general just so that your friends can't follow you. Type of thing, because like there's a specific reason, even though you're childhood friends.
Instead of just explaining, instead of just being able to be like, hey, this is what's going on. You guys got to go this way. I got to go that way. Yeah, I think I can agree with that.
It was just annoying. And then even like in the prologue, which I think we're going to get into a little bit, is, and I think that might be a problem for the dark friends going forward, is like each person got their own set of instructions that nobody else heard. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I think there's going to be a miscommunication there in the future.
We'll
The,
talk
like,
about we'll talk
oh,
about that in a
maybe-
second. We'll talk about that in a
Okay.
second. Let's talk about Riker. What's your biggest critique of this book?
My biggest critique, I actually agree. In having this new way to get them across the entire continent, it does seem rather convenient, but I think that's going to be a problem in a lot of these books, especially with it being the 14-book series. We're going to get these seemingly out of nowhere plot conveniences, but we'll see them in other books, and we're going to be more familiar with them.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to kind of forgive that. But main one is the sniffer. That is the goofiest thing in the entire book. What the actual fuck is that? I couldn't have just had a tracker.
Okay, so my thinking is that the reason the sniffer, like, thinking from a writer's perspective, the reason the sniffer is there is to set up Perrin to replace him and, like, set up him accepting more of his wolf brother aspects.
Or then are we gonna get like an animal talker to set up Perrin better later? Like,
no,
like,
I would say, go ahead.
I was just, they were like there at the beginning and they're like, all right, who do we need for the mission? Do we need the sniffer? Do we need the taster? Do we need the hearer? Do we need the whatever? Like if he kind of introduced like a couple more magic systems or ability systems, and then like, no, we need the sniffer. The sniffer's the best in this situation. That we're gonna need him to follow the Trollocs.
If he did a little bit more like background building of like the abilities rather than just introducing the ability out of left field.
So far, it's like the ability is introduced for convenience. Oh, hey, Perrin all of a sudden is a wolf brother, whatever, and he meets the guy who's perfect to teach him how to be a wolf brother.
Elias.
Yeah, and all the wolves and stuff. Oh, we need to track someone. We have a fucking sniffer who can sniff out blood or
death, basically,
trauma,
violence,
death, whatever.
Negative feelings.
Yeah, whatever he needs to sniff out to follow him.
Now, I agree with that. I don't think this is, and Riker, you finished book 3, right? You haven't touched book 4 really yet.
I'm only on chapter 4, book 4.
So in my thinking back on these books, I don't think this is as much of a problem after the first 2 books.
No,
I think it's much.
No,
I think this is the last time that I would say that I have that critique, but we'll see because I'm reading through it again.
Yeah. But as far as the next book goes, I don't recall any of what we're talking about right now being a major issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we'll talk about it when we get to that.
I will say this is the beginning of the end for sword combat in this book series.
Okay.
Everything else is fine.
Okay.
Everything else is fine.
All right, we're getting into that. We're getting to that right now.
That's my con.
No,
that's the biggest problem.
We'll talk about that when we get to the Swordmaster fight. I don't agree with you at all. Prologue, or we'll get to it when we get to the beginning of the book. So, with going to the Dark Friends, like, orders, like, all being secret, I don't think that is as much of a problem as miscommunication for them as it is a problem of, like, setting up
cockiness.
And that everyone has their own personal interest in doing what they're doing, which I think does do a good job of, like, setting up their organization as, like, only the strongest are going to get to rise to the top. Like, those who are the craftiest and the most sly are going to get to the top, and it's a way that I feel like, because, like, in a lot of fantasy, you get, like, the classic, like, if I think back to, like, Lord of the Rings, right? You get the classic, like, blank, faceless horde of creatures that are violent for violence sake. Whereas with this, I feel like you get the ability to, like, see, like, okay, the people at the top know what they're doing and they know how to control these people to make sure that they actually have a functioning organization that is actually threatening.
Yeah,
I was going to say. Oh, sorry.
No. Right, I've talked way too much. Record. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say this is all a great way to show the control that this Dark One has over all what I'm going to call the individual cells of his own organization. Like, this person is going to specifically do this, and they're not going to interact with these other people because I want them doing this. And so that way he can control exactly what they're doing, control their aspirations, and think that if I accomplish this one task, this will get me higher on the totem pole. And he's using that just to feed this loop of just serving him.
Yes.
I think
I really liked it. I really liked that we got the dark one's side and like their plans.
Yeah.
Can't say that word right now. It's been like an hour and a half of drinking. Their plans are like what they want to do and like what they're trying to like get everyone to do in general, like all the dark friends. I loved seeing that side. It gave a like urgency to this book.
Yeah.
A little bit more than I was expecting.
And I think it gives that sense of like, do not kill them. And it gives like a realistic like reason.
Yeah, I don't know which one it is.
Yeah.
While the dark friends are like, oh, okay, we can't like, because you don't want the people coming after you if they're this threatening to be like like assassins waiting in the dark. And it's a way to basically set it to where like, hey, all of you idiots, I want them alive.
Which this might be a spoiler
who
question.
The dragon's gonna be.
Yeah, this might be more of a spoiler question for Gavin, because since you've read the whole series, he's threatened multiple times that he's fine with killing Rand, the Dragon Reborn, and no matter what, if he kills Rand, then he will become his own puppet. I'm guessing that's not true.
No.
I'm guessing that's a false. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm guessing it's a lie.
Yeah, because I mean, the way I would think about it, I mean, like, I don't think it's ever directly stated like, no, this isn't, but like it's really used in like, I think in the whole Horn of Valir part of this book, where like the heroes come back and are talked about, and like Rand, the Dragon Reborn, or the dragon is like a servant of the wheel, and so like if he dies, his spirit will be reincarnated. So there's no way he can like take his soul to be his servant. Like he has to like willingly give himself over to the Dark One to become his.
He wants to tempt him.
Yeah, he's basically like, it's basically a lie of like, hey, doesn't matter what you do, you're gonna be my servant anyway. And Rand's like, nah, fam.
Right.
Self-doubt. Okay. Tries to get him to doubt himself.
And in general, I like the prologue.
I think that stops later in the series. It's not as much about like, I think I don't know if it's in book 3 or if it's in book 4 where it's kind of like, okay, you don't believe me. Okay, well then, I'm coming after you type thing a little bit more seriously. Okay.
It seems
in general, I like the prologue.
It seems more desperate in book 3, but that's all I'm going to leave it at that.
I remember leaving the prologue having like 2 predictions for the rest of the series and being like, oh my God, like it's getting like, it's about to fucking go off.
It escalates real fast from this book.
Okay, let's talk about the beginning. I think we've already really covered the points about the annoyance of miscommunication between Rand, Matt, and Perrin.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the training between Lan and Rand.
I liked the training session. It's the naming convention of the sword moves that I have the real umbrage with.
Umbrage? Damn, you're going Harry Potter on us.
Because I don't... Man, it's just... If they had like the wheel goes over the mountain or the stag crosses through the river, whatever the fuck they call it, and have a description of what that is, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
The hummingbird kisses the butthole.
Yeah, like shit like that.
Apple Blossoms in the Wind, Arc of the Moon, Black Lance,
Arc of the Moon,
Last Strike.
And like Arc of the Moon, you can kind of take, like maybe it's like an overhead thing or like some kind of curved slash or something, but you don't get as much out of that as you do like when Perrin's fighting with his axe or when Matt, I think Matt uses a bow in this book, right?
I don't think he does anything.
Yeah, he's
He
kind of
doesn't
worthless in this book.
I think he's
Okay.
literally the most useless character other than Min.
Other than what happens at the end of what he does with Horn.
I was gonna say, Matt, this is gonna be my one. Just you wait. Matt takes a little bit of time to get going.
Well, I know in book 3, like I really like what they do with Matt in book 3, but
I think it just
and-
from book 3
yeah.
and beyond, he gets better and better and better. So
yeah. But as far as like sword combat goes with Rand specifically, I would just like more description of these moves that they're using.
Okay, I totally disagree with you.
Okay.
I love because like the thing is like a lot of, especially like thinking back to when Jordan was writing these books, a lot of like fantasy writers at this time had a really difficult time describing elegant combat that was like really interesting and easy to see. Like oftentimes it'd either get too confusing or it'd be like, the main thing I'm thinking about is like the ending fight between Voldemort and Harry Potter, which I know came out much later than the beginning of the Wheel of Time. But it's like literally like 2 paragraphs and then the fight is done. Whereas like with
I don't fucking remember it worth like a lick of that shit.
That's okay. With this, because I think you get enough with like Perrin and other people that it's like such a different way to think about combat. I find it super cool and a really interesting way as a writer to cheat, to not have to go into like these very detailed but boring descriptions of a sword fight. Because like if you actually watch a sword fight, I feel like it's very boring, and like you can try to make it intense, but like I feel like the names actually like build up that intensity, and we have that one move, the heron spreads its wings, that Land sets up in the very beginning of the book.
No. It's not Heron spread the wings. It's
Isn't, or which one is
it's
it?
sheath the sword, isn't it?
Yeah,
Sheathing the sword.
sheathing the sword.
Sheathing the sword, but I think the move
That's
is
more of a mental
called.
thing.
I think that move is actually
Right.
called Heron spreads its wings.
Oh.
But sheathing the sword, which it means like taking the sword into your own body. Yeah, it's just like a way of like their like I think it's supposed to be like Shinaran culture of like accepting death basically to like land a killing blow yourself.
Letting your mind go
For,
blank
for
right?
something better.
Yeah,
I will.
It's
Oh,
basically
sorry.
it's basically accepting that like you're out of moves to victory, so your only choice is to kill yourself but take your opponent down with you.
I will concede my point. I didn't really think about the time period it was in, and I also didn't think about like again. I'll actually go back to a previous point I made. This is a 14-book series. Maybe not at the time. It was 14, but it was at least 6.
Yeah.
How is he gonna write sword fights for books that are 1,000 pages each 6 times that aren't boring? I guess I didn't really think about it that way.
Yeah,
I mean, fucking take your point back.
you're
Listen to
like, I
me.
concede.
There are some
I
there are
concede
some
that point.
sword moves that are cool. Arc over the moon. You get it. You understand what's going on.
I kind of understand.
Kiss of the hummingbird or whatever the fuck. And then there's like wading through the leaves as a herring or whatever.
There's water
Like the
flows
herring
down
stance?
hill.
Mhm.
There's a bunch of different ones. Parting the silk. That was one that's
yeah.
used in this one.
There's some that don't make any sense. But you're supposed to try to follow it.
Yeah.
And
At
it's
least
like there's some that make
it
sense.
in your head to make sense.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a thing I think that Jordan does in this, right? He's like conceding that he's not going to be able to describe it in such a cool way that you're interesting, so he's leaving it to the reader's imagination to interpret the moves that he's putting in to
Which
this
I
book.
appreciate,
Which I can appreciate.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can
that-
appreciate that.
In itself is interesting. Or herring stance or something. Isn't that like a thing like that was the biggest thing in this, like the herring stance, like him trying to learn how to balance himself.
I'm pretty sure that's the heron spreads its wings, or heron waiting in the rushes, one of the two.
Yeah, heron waiting in the rushes. That's the one where he's like it's a
Yeah,
stance move that's not
that's
great
the
in
one
combat.
that's the one that he uses that basically is the sheathing what he does to sheath the sword.
Then there's sheathing the
No,
sword,
no.
which he waits for the fight, right?
No, heron waiting in the rushes is basically what he uses
I thought there was one that's like a stance that he's like learning
yes,
to balance.
That's what Heron waiting in the rushes is.
Okay.
It's generally used for balance, but the way he uses it is to basically grant an opening, because you never use it in combat because it grants an opening to your opponent to trick and basically kill himself to get the killing blow back.
Gotcha.
Which is
we'll get to
pretty
that.
good effect
which
later.
is what Lan is like, hey, don't use this in combat. Unless you're willing to sheathe the sword.
You're not able to do this. I do like... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. You started.
Sorry. I do enjoy how this does translate overall to Rand's control of sighting.
Yeah.
The sword training.
The sword training, and then also the how the void that his father taught him is like a combination.
Exactly. He keeps calling back to these things, sword fighting or when he's channeling. I do appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But that whole interaction with Rand and Lan on the like training on top of the tower, I don't know. I really loved all of that. I felt like we got so much more of Lan.
Yep.
You get a lot of characterization for Lan there.
Yeah, and where he's like really trying to like take Rand under his like wing, like basically, and like really like you almost got like a father-son situation with those two. And I just loved it.
Yeah.
At least a mentorship. But I loved that whole thing.
Yeah, I think it's
you can just tell.
I think in just a couple pages he did what he failed to do in the first book, which was give Lan like a lot of depth really quickly, and like because he didn't really. Lan was like almost blank emotional in the first book.
Yeah,
but like
which I loved.
Still moments, but I feel like this is like just enough to be like, okay, he does actually like care about these kids.
It cracked the facade.
Yeah, he's sending these boys to their deaths, basically, is what he thinks.
Like, I guess I'll say,
and he needs to prepare them as much as he can.
Yeah. Okay. How do you guys like meeting the Amerlin seat?
Boss bitch. I love her.
I felt like this was Jordan's best characterization of a character so far. Like,
he's got weight.
Swan Sanche.
The way I tried to write her name down and it was said once and I just missed it. I just kept going.
It's Swan Sanche. Swan.
Okay. She's like from a fishing village and everything she says is reference to fishing or being a fisherman and like gutting fish or like stuff like I don't know. I just loved it. Every time she spoke, you knew it was her.
Yeah.
Even if she. Oh, it was like even like it didn't say like, oh, the Amerlin seat said blank. You knew who was talking.
Yep.
They emphasized she came from nothing, and this lady owns it.
Which might be a foreshadow.
Greatest Aes Sedai.
She's from Tyr originally, which Tyr is very much like on the coast and does a lot of fishing and stuff like that. So yeah, I do think Swan's one of like a super interesting character, and I think this is when Jordan begins to kind of redeem himself with female characters, because I felt like Moraine was interesting in book 1, but like throughout the entirety of the series, he gets significantly better. Like I understand that some of the other characters in this book, which we'll get to, are kind of like, why didn't you fix this?
Oh, is Tyr on the coast? Can we travel there in fucking 4 seconds?
You will get to see Tyr next book.
It takes significantly longer.
Yes, it does.
Oh,
which you'll like. The journey's fun.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else about that?
I just think she's such a nuanced character and it's just a breath of fresh air. I'll leave it at that. Breath of fresh air compared to what we've seen from other female characters in this book. She's commanding, she has a presence, and she speaks so matter-of-factly.
Yeah. And you got to see her be friends with Moraine.
Yeah.
Like you could tell they were actually like close friends from when they were like growing up.
You get the face break after they're in private together. Yeah.
Yes. Which I guess I didn't do my summary very well. The party split didn't happen yet.
That's okay.
Rand goes to meet
Yeah, he
with
goes.
the Amaranth seat.
Yeah, each of them goes to meet with the Amerlin Sea, but Rand's the only one that we get to. We get to hear Rand and Moraine are the only two that we get to hear about. That talk.
I didn't even think about. I guess Perrin and Matt went to go see them
They
too,
went to go
right?
see her too.
Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that actually happened because we're just getting Rand running around the city being like,
I don't want to go
be their pawn, blah, 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 blah.
You get a lot of I won't be their pawn.
Yeah. We'll get into it.
Sucks for you, man.
I mean, I do like how Land's like, all right, this is exactly how you're going to act to her, and it's going to be cocky and arrogant, and it's going to be great. Trust me.
And she's like, wow. Land got to him.
Yep. Land's like, don't let them push you around, man.
Yeah, I will say though, I did appreciate that the interaction where like she talked about how she saw Rand when she entered the city and was terrified of him. Yep. Because she could see what he was.
Yep.
Because she's like, hey, Rand, you're the Dragon Reborn, dum-dum. Idiot. Like, that's what you are. Well, and then we get a little bit more interaction with the Aes Sedai and their colors and like how they're different, have different like study groups or actions or like what they want to do.
Yeah, we get into that more of I feel like you guys will get more of that into the future of the books, but basically like the ones that I feel like we get the most of are the blues and the reds right now, and we get a little bit of the browns, which are the basically the like,
librarians.
Yeah,
right?
The browns are basically the librarians. Is the best way to do it. They're researchers.
Yeah.
They like to just like study things and have like they like to gather knowledge. Whereas like the blues have like a purpose, and the reds like hunt down men.
They're hunters.
Yeah.
I like having the different factions of the Aes Sedai.
I was like, oh, reds hate men, greens love men.
It like that right there is a conflict in and of itself that I'm surprised that
Browns
this
love
organization has worked for as long as it has.
Greens are. I don't think we get the full description of what greens are supposed to be until later, and I don't know if I want to spoil that for you.
That they're allowed to marry.
They're definitely allowed to marry.
No, every Aes Sedai Aja is allowed to marry. It's just whether or not they choose to. Greens are just the ones that are most prone to.
They're most prone to do it. Okay, I misunderstood.
They're more like loosey-goosey. It's from what I've heard.
The Greens... Okay, this is just going to save a lot of time because this isn't really a spoiler. The Greens are the battle Aja. They're literally designed to fight the final battle. Like they're there to basically be like killers of like Dark One servants.
Oh, would you think that would be the red with how? Oh. I understood the red to be the most.
But that's why they take multiple warders and stuff like that.
Oh.
I mean, that part makes sense. I thought it was just more like they're like, oh, I kind of like the human flesh more.
I viewed them a little more hippy dippy than.
Yeah, dude. They're like, we're smoking the devil's leaf.
Yeah.
They're a little bit
Dark
out there
Ones
sometimes.
Jesus.
Well, you got to also understand that, like, up to this point, like, Trollocs haven't really been a problem except at the Borderlands. So
right.
Except when they fucking are.
Yeah, except when they are. Okay, let's jump to the next point. Let's talk about when the party splits and the girls go to Tarvalin and the boys go to find the horn. Actually, we can talk about a little bit about no, we'll just jump to that. I was gonna say we could talk about Pod and Fane and stuff like that, but I feel like Fane's like a better hold off for later anyway.
You get that blood scene, with like on the wall, the written blood, and I think that's supposed to be a big foreshadow or fortune telling thing, but I can't remember what it said.
It's a Dark One prophecy, and I don't think it's that important moving forward.
Okay.
No, it's something along the effect of we'll meet again.
Yeah.
Right. And we get the red Aes Sedai Leandrin being creepy and like nobody trusts her.
Aes Sedai.
Right. What?
We'll get there. Okay, so
stop being on book 4.
No, it's at the end of this book, man.
Yeah, it does go into this book. What do you think about the studying in the tower in general? We'll just talk about the entire tower arc now.
That's a lot to go through. Really.
We're not going to talk about. We'll talk about the ending part because I know I want to talk about that specifically. But like,
okay, good.
Just in general, like Nynaeve's trial, them all meeting up, a bunch of
Okay.
them running into girls that Rand met down on his travels. I know, Marcus, you love that, so I had to put that
Oh
in there.
yes. The exotic enigma that is Rand and his harem. That all happened to be at the tower.
I'll let you go first, Riker.
Isn't the farmer girl at the tower too?
Yep.
Yeah, she is.
Oh my god,
I'll let
she
you go
is, yeah.
first.
Shit. I liked it. Particularly there's one point in here. I was talking to Gavin about this a little bit earlier. But there is a point where with Nynaeve's training to become an accepted that it shows how powerful Rand is later, because what she does requires multiple Aes Sedai, and what Rand does, he just does it.
Yeah, you're
So-
talking about the arches and
Yes, the arches that she has to walk through to become accepted.
Tarang.
Uh,
How do you say that? Tarangiel? How do
yeah,
you?
that's Tangriel.
I didn't write that down.
I
Why
think
did
it was.
she-
Tarangriel. Yeah, there we go. I got it. It took me a second.
Why does she have to be naked through the whole thing? Like, why did it have to be very specifically noted multiple times?
Yes.
I wonder if it's like an
So
either
okay,
one, they can't take it into those.
yeah, I can tell
places,
you.
or-
I can tell you the logistical reason in the book. I can, but then I can also do a little bit of writing background explaining too.
It's
I
supposed to be
wonder-
like you're exposing yourself to something new, probably.
And like
But-
your sisterhood, like
She-
because you're
yes.
surrounded by your sisters.
Yes.
Sure, but
And she also can't take anything of this world into other worlds with her through the arches. That's
Because we are going to a different
That
world.
is the
Yeah.
book definition. Now,
Sure.
taking that context and putting into the real world, again, these books were released in the early 90s, so this wasn't as much of a talking point, but I agree with you. I think that, and I think that's been discussed a lot more in modern day writing of like
Wow,
this
that's true.
sexualization of women, especially needing to be like naked or like hyper focusing, sexualizing or hyper focusing
Yeah.
on them getting undressed or not having clothes or anything like that. And I agree. I don't think that's necessary. But at the time, it was not as I would say not as talked about. But it's definitely something that I think if it was written today would have been removed and cut from the final edition of the book.
right,
Absolutely.
Because
It definitely didn't
it
need to
serves
be
no
referenced back to
actual
multiple times.
purpose.
right. And I get that, like maybe some of the purpose was she was supposed to she's supposed to give up where she came from.
Yeah.
She's supposed to be an Aes Sedai, not anything else. But once she came out of being accepted in all of her 3 trials, she basically came out of it saying, "No, I am still who I am."
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that
fuck
was
your
it.
rules.
Yeah, basically,
that was
it
that was
didn't
90.
make it didn't make sense to me of like, oh, this is what the trial is, and even like the people, the Aes Sedai in the chamber were like, we don't really know how this is
We don't know how this works.
controlled. Yeah, we don't know how this works.
Yeah.
By the way,
You could get
good,
lost forever.
yeah, good fucking luck. Don't
He's kind of
also
dangerous.
also by the way, don't channel. Oh, you channeled? Oh,
Well,
Okay.
I mean, that is a stage of like setting up Nynaeve for the future. Again, I think it's like part of it is definitely like supposed to set up like her being vulnerable, her being like her truest self type thing. Again, I don't think she needed to be naked for this to set up those points.
right.
But
it was
Absolutely
just
not.
it's just odd, like just very like it
It's
threw
very
me out.
it's very specific.
Where I was just like, wait, what? Like she's naked? Okay.
And the fact that they keep bringing back to it seemed weird.
Yeah, I agree.
yeah,
I think moving past that, because I've already basically said what I think about that point. Definitely think
Yeah.
it's completely unnecessary.
it was of the time frame.
Yeah. But I definitely think, and that gets, I would say, gets better over time in the Wheel of Time series. But I feel like the actual trials themselves give us a very, like, a closer look into who Nynaeve is as a person. I still think that, like, a lot of her characterization is, like, this is very like a fact-based analysis of who she is versus and what she wants versus like a very like versus like a more
Sorry, excuse me.
in-depth look into like her character through like dialogue and action.
There was a lot more show.
Yeah, it was a
Don't
show.
tell.
It was a show.
This was definitely a show moment for 98.
Or well, actually, it would be the other way around. It'd be like a telling point. You're telling the audience what her character is basically.
Which I feel like is a lot of the characters. It's a tell, not show.
Yeah, it gets. I promise it does get better over the course of the series.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, I totally misspoke there.
Yeah, well, I mean that's like a writing term, so I'm not like it's kind of a weird when you think about it like that. But I think I'm excited for you to see the Egwene's trials, Marcus, because I think those come up in book 3.
They do, and they are so much fun.
And
Is
I
she
think
naked?
they're
I
so
love
much
that part.
better. Yeah, they follow the
Oh.
same formula.
Oh
but-
yeah, she naked.
Yeah, but I don't remember them calling back to it as much.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
honest.
Then never mind.
it's not as egregious, we'll say.
Okay.
The training's definitely a lot more important than the state of mind, we'll say,
Yeah.
Okay.
or state of nakedness.
So,
We split the party again.
split the
Split the
party. Yeah, we'll
party!
just skip like cuz basically all the boys are doing at that point is just like following the Dark Friends and the Trollocs and stuff.
And they're having
With my boy Inktar.
they're having boy problems.
Yeah, they're having boy
Literally.
problems.
Rand has the banner.
It's like,
that he
oh,
finds.
Rand's the stuck-up bitch. He's not. He has never indicated that he is a stuck-up bitch.
Yeah.
I mean, his only indication of it is that one. We've already talked about this. That was
We've
a
already
bunch
talked
of that.
about it.
I know.
That conflict
I hate
is
it.
really dumb.
Yeah, like,
Um,
it's so dumb.
So we do
Painful.
get the point where the portal stones are activated while Rand is asleep.
Right. And then
Yeah.
Rand, Loyal, and
Huron.
Huron, not Kieran.
Here,
I thought his name was Kieran.
I'm pretty sure it's
Kieran the
Huron.
Sniffer go to a different world.
yep.
And then Matt's like, oh, he left us.
I'm gonna get mad about it, like I do about everything.
Not
Rand
lying.
think he's so cool. Like that's what the internalization is for both
Yeah.
Matt and Perrin at this point. Rand thinks he's so cool. Dragon
Yeah, no,
Reborn,
it's-
piece of shit.
And we don't even know he's the Dragon Reborn. Me.
Stuck
It's
up
it's
asshole.
true though.
It is.
Yeah.
Matt is really annoying in this book. Let's be
Oh,
honest.
I think Matt's worse in this book than the first one.
Yeah,
For sure.
it's basically like Jordan does Matt's character dirty up until like book like 3 or 4.
It's
And then he
halfway
starts,
through book 3.
yeah, and then he starts getting better.
And
Which
then, like,
he
oh, damn, Matt's
uses.
actually dope.
He like there's a I like when you think about it, he's connected to the dagger from Shadar Logoth, so there's like a plot-esque
There's plot
reason
reasons.
why he's like so suspicious and constantly like he's constantly bitching. Okay,
Yeah,
I just wish we got a perspective of him to get that mindset more.
I think that's why book 3 and beyond is just so much better because we
Right,
do
'cause you
get
get Matt.
perspectives. Yeah, we do get his
They
perspective.
split.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we already talked about the portal stones a lot, but we do get to meet Selene
Selene.
within the portal stones,
Selene.
which I just remember, Marcus, you texting me middle of the section and being like, is literally every girl gonna fall for Rand?
Which is hilarious because I also text. We have our own group chat with Riker and Logan.
Country Bumpkins hate group. Yes.
Yeah, that's what it's called. The Country Bumpkins Hate Group, which I might rename to the fucking Country Girls Hate Group. Because we'll get there in a second. But I literally said the same thing. Like, is it wow, everyone gonna fucking fall in love with Rand, meaning Selene? And then like 10 minutes later, I think I said Selene is a big sus. Vote her
Yeah.
out. Vote
exactly
her out
what he
of
said.
this ship.
And I
Oh
was
my
like, oh,
god.
just you wait. Yeah.
Because I mean, I don't know if anyone in the world was like, yeah, Selene is, you know what, she's probably a good person.
I think it was supposed to be very blatantly obvious
like,
that something bad was
There's
going on.
something
with her.
wrong with this lady.
Well, because the first
Yeah.
thing you got to think about is like, wait, how did she get into the Portal Stone world? And
Right,
then he's
which-
like, "Aren't you an Aes Sedai?" And she's like, "I'm not an Aes Sedai." And then it's like,
You
okay,
idiot.
And
then,
she gets like really offended.
yeah, and then she gets like really defensive at weird times, and it's like, wait,
Mhm.
what's going on? With
That's not even
her?
what like got me like all like ugh about her. It was more like go for glory, Rand.
Yeah.
She's like constantly like,
I liked the mystery of Celine though. I liked that.
Yeah. No, in general, every
Being
time
like,
we
"What the
had
fuck is
Celine,
this?" Yeah.
I loved it because I was like, you're getting played, Rand, and also loyal. You're not the same species. Can you put your PP away? Because
Didn't she
even
appear before Matt too in this book?
did she
I don't think so.
I don't know.
appear
if it's this...
before Matt? What do you mean?
Yeah.
No, I don't
Like-
think it's in this book.
Okay. I'm
Oh.
getting that part mixed up.
Oh, way to go.
Sorry.
Spoiler.
I
Which-
mean,
It's not really a spoiler. I mean,
is
like
it
we
after you learn who she is?
we know who she is.
Yeah.
Which at the end of the book, for those who are watching and haven't
Well,
read
I mean,
that fully,
I will be giving a spoiler warning in the intro, so don't go full.
So go
spoiler.
nuts, no
Yeah,
need
we're,
to.
Right.
we're not holding back on spoilers. This is a discussion.
she's Landfear,
Landfear.
who is a
Forsaken.
Forsaken.
She's one of the Forsaken, who are like the prime servants of the Dark One.
right.
Super powerful.
My question
Really
is, 'cause
cool,
I don't think
actually.
it's answered here. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. Let me know if it doesn't get answered and I didn't like miss it. Do Forsakens get killed and like there are new Forsakens, or is it the original Forsakens from way back when?
These are the original
They're the
Forsaken.
original. They
Yeah.
were
Okay.
sealed with Balsamon.
Okay,
They're sealed with the Dark One.
Yeah.
but
And
apparently they
since
can
the-
sneak out
the dark-
better.
Since the seals are cracking, they're able to slip through and come through.
Okay. So my prediction for the future books makes more sense now because of that fact.
Yeah.
But yeah,
yeah. Go ahead. You had something else?
no, I just loved all the interactions with her because you knew that she was evil and you're just like, you stupid country bumpkin.
Yeah, she basically used like
You're a piece of shit.
she's like, hey, I know you find me hot. I'm gonna use that against you.
Yeah.
I mean, like you could just tell she had magic power or power in general over anyone she talked to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, there's also a
and you
magic
can tell
element to it.
Yeah, but like, she used her femininity more than her magic ability. I'll say.
Yeah, sure.
Because-
But
She,
even
Boy,
she
Rand
weaves
focused on that neckline a lot.
she weaves them together all the
Very
time,
well.
and that's kind of what like as we get through deeper and deeper into the series, that's kind of how the Forsaken act. They always have like a magic that they kind of use to emphasize their own personalities. Like they have like a specialty, or at least some of them
That's
have
true.
specialties. So
That's true.
okay.
okay, on to Kyrian and the great game, the game of houses.
I love the great game.
All right, let's fight.
Oh, okay. We didn't even get to the. I didn't even put in like the summary of like how they came through the portal stone, ended up in front of Perrin Faye, and went like, oh,
Pottenfane, yeah.
or Pottenfay, and we can go fucking steal the horn,
I mean,
sneak into camp.
it
It was such just like a meh moment that I just skipped over it.
yeah,
guess.
I think. I mean, that's used to set up stuff, not only in this book, I feel like, but in the future of like time is kind of weird in the other worlds. Like
Right,
time
no, like,
doesn't
yeah,
function
they
the same.
appeared ahead of them. They came out of the worlds.
You're
out of
just,
the-
you're
the-
just
the
saying like
world.
maybe
Out of
like
the
the confrontation with the original confrontation between the Trollocs and Rand should have been a little bit more
Something
explored.
happened.
Yeah, instead of
Yeah,
him like him and Loyal walking into camp and taking the horn and piecing out.
Yeah, Loyal just being
Yeah.
like, here, let me pick this shit up, and you just, I don't know, do nothing and kill one Trolloc.
He
How
kills
trope-
he kills a
How
lot more than one.
tropey is the
Trolloc.
trying to sneak through and then them being discovered and a huge conflict happens, though? Is my question. with
Very
that.
tropey.
Yeah, so I kind of appreciate that the plan actually worked without a hitch.
Well, I think the reason that I'm okay with like one is because I just don't think that would be a cool moment anyway. And the reason I think I'm kind of okay with the plan working is because basically delivering it into worse hands. Like, they're taking it from Pod Unfeigned and basically putting it near the hands of Forsaken instead.
True.
That's true.
So,
And she opened that chest immediately, and then we got like a little interaction of like, I don't know how to open the chest, by the way, yet.
yeah.
And I went, oh shit. Why was Celine able to fucking open this chest? Which was really, I love that little like realization.
Yeah, that
But-
little
Definitely clicks,
interaction.
and you're like, wait,
Wait, what the fuck going on?
like what's
Yeah.
this? What's this chick's deal? Yeah.
So that, yeah, then Rand and the Sniffer and Loyal, Kieran, what, like head way ahead of Inktar and company and get to
Kyrian.
Kyrian?
Kyrian.
And basically wait there for them.
Yep. And that's where we get the great game. Your favorite part.
That's where we get the great game.
It's not my favorite part.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, it's Riker's favorite part.
It's not my favorite part, but I just like that it's cool. Like I've seen it in other media, like we referenced Game of Thrones, Dragon Age has it, a whole country does it in Dragon Age, and it's just cool to see like where that came from and how much it influences this other media. And it's
I
cool
mean,
to see
I
where
would
it's
say
from.
that Game of Thrones isn't necessarily directly influenced by this because Game of
That's more of a
Thrones.
country scale.
Well, Game of Thrones is based on the War of the Roses, which is British history. So Game of Thrones is really just British history reimagined is the way to think about it, which is why I always compare it to like a historical book because that's the way he also writes it. But
if you've ever seen that map, it's I think Great Britain or Ireland flipped over.
No, it's literally England. Like it's like England,
England.
Wales, and Scotland.
Yes,
It's I'm not even kidding. Like it's literally that is the map with a wall
upside down.
No, it's not even upside down. It's basically the same map. Well, we'll get. We're not talking about Game of Thrones.
I don't know, but it's upside down.
We'll fight about this after we're done.
It's great.
I mean, I think the great game is fun, but I think it's fun because it's not. It's like we, the reader, don't really care, and Rand doesn't really care, but like everyone else is like, this guy, he must be very powerful and very
an outside
clever.
element.
He's an outside element that we're not anticipating. Whose servant is he?
And it's where this country bumpkinisms actually works out to a positive.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Like how much he does not give a shit. It's the one time where I'm just like, wow, yeah, throwing away that invite was. I see where like you hate the fact that you got an invite because you're a country bumpkin, and it being positive for him, I loved it.
But even like the Sniffer is like, oh, you can't do that, Rand, because my Lord Rand, who you've told me 14 fucking million times that you're just not a lord. This is where the miscommunication of the whole book comes in.
No, I don't think that's a miscommunication thing. I think that's no one believes that Rand is not a secret prince from a foreign land because he's carrying so many like in a way Moraine kind of sets him up to look like that and like sets him up for everyone to not believe him because like who would believe that you're not a foreign lord when you're wearing like really nice clothes and you have a Blade Master sword with you.
Heron Mark sword.
And it's like it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, like I can agree that it's like the great game itself is like really dumb, but I think that we the reader are supposed to think it's stupid anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes that part interesting to me is that it's like everyone else is trying to do this like 3D chess and Rand is like
He
fucking not even playing
like
checkers.
Yeah, he's like the cat that like knocks over all the pieces and he's like what's this mean?
That's what makes it fun. Like you have all these people that are trying to do like so many different maneuvers politically, and you get this one person that just cuts right through it. I love it.
Well, it's also supposed to set up like different cultures, right? Like it's supposed to set up like again with like the Shan Chan we'll get to a little bit later, but like it's another like this is like ingrained within Kyrian's culture. That's like this constant like everyone is constantly like trying to outmaneuver and outthink everyone else around them. That when someone isn't doing that, everyone's perception of that in that culture is that
Freaks the
really
fuck
are.
out.
They freak the fuck out.
Yeah.
Which my argument to that would be if you were Rand and you're in this situation where you're trying to not look like a lord, buy clothes that don't make you look lordly.
I mean, I can agree with that one.
That's a good point.
But
That's it. That's all you need. Because all they said were like, he looks lordly because he's wearing these clothes that Moraine gave him.
Yeah, but like, okay, the way, since I know how Kyrian thinks moving into the future too, because Kyrian's both the city and the country, and the way that country thinks and that culture thinks, like if he would have been wearing normal clothes but still had the Heron Mark sword with him, everyone would have been like even more freaked out.
Probably.
Like, but again, I think that this is like a good example of Jordan doing some setup of world building, but not fully paying it off yet. Just like sliding it in there is like, hey, this is here, and it getting paid off down the line in other books.
Later. Right. And I guess this is where I would say like the pacing of this book really fucking slowed down for me.
I will say this is the slowest part of the book, as much as I enjoyed it. This is slow.
Did you understand? I had to re-listen to this part. Listening to these books, by the way, for people who don't know, who like physically read them, it's harder to understand when there's character breaks and like time breaks because you don't get the big paragraph breaks.
Like there's all not of a sudden white space to show.
Right.
Yeah, there's not like a symbol there to show.
They just keep reading for you in your ear. I didn't understand that the Trollocs were being like paraded through the streets as puppeteers at first. Like it all of a sudden in my head, I'm like, why are there Trollocs chasing them in this city? Like it doesn't make any sense to me. So like there was a big break in this section of the book for me that I was just like, wait. All of a sudden he's now running away from the Dark Friends. And now there's fireworks going off and shit. It was just so strange to me in my head. Did you guys like have that same break where you're like, I don't understand why there are Trollocs all of a sudden?
Reading it did feel very weird. I remember that.
Yeah, they're like
it did seem to just kind of come out of nowhere.
They like sneak the Trollocs into the town by
puppeteers.
Yeah, basically thinking that people think they're like puppets and stuff like that. Yeah.
It did seem kind of like, what the fuck?
I mean, we've already kind of talked about like that as a critique of this book, that there's a lot of times where I feel like Jordan, and especially in these earlier books, does I don't know how to solve this issue, so I'm just going to solve it like this.
So they think they're puppets. Yeah.
But it wasn't like it was just like a time in like the book that was just so strange, where like he's just getting away from the Trollocs that somehow got into the city and nothing came of it.
I think that well, they do get to meet the fireworks people.
Right.
Why can't I think of what they're called?
I don't remember what they're called.
I can't remember what it's called because it was just such a strange part of the book for me. Everyone's Googling.
I figured you guys would. I'm not going to.
No, I have no fucking clue.
The guild of Illuminators. The Illuminators.
Illuminators. Yeah.
They do come up later on, especially Aludra. Aludra, who we're introduced to in this book, comes up in the future. But yeah, it's another one of those things that's like, and I like, from a writing perspective, the way that I'm seeing it is that this is a lot of like, Jordan had all these cool world elements that he wanted to include and wanted to fill in this time to make it feel like there was actually a gap between Rand, like how far Rand and party got ahead of Inktar.
Right. And we definitely got that. Oh, because we mentioned, we met Tom Merlin again.
Yeah. He's alive. Surprise.
Wow.
No one was surprised.
Yeah, no.
I mean, Moraine literally says in the last book, Tom's not dead.
She's just like, oh, it's going to take a lot more to kill that guy. And I mean, she's absolutely right. Tom goes through the fucking ringer.
I loved that. I loved, like in general, I knew Tom was alive. I loved how we got him back immediately. And he had like a love interest where she is a bard, not a gleeman.
Yep. Well, she's
And
not.
there's a
She's like
difference.
she's a bard. Essentially, she's a bard in training. The way that I've always seen bards and gleemen to be a little bit different is gleemens are more of like, um, travel around from town to village to like perform, and like do storytellings and like juggling and all that stuff. Kind of like a jester that travels. Whereas like a bard is actually a part of a court and hired, and is a patron of like has a patron from that court. So like
She's
king
on retainer, basically.
Yeah, like a king would like hire a bard, and you'd be like a permanent retainer of like you'd be a permanent fixture of the realm.
Oh, okay.
But
It's like a permanent gleeman.
she's in training, and he wants her to be a bard, not a
Not
gleeman.
a gleeman. Right.
Because he doesn't want her to travel. He doesn't think that like because he doesn't make a bunch
traveling.
of money from traveling all the time. Like you make a lot more money as like a court bard.
It is almost like a vagrant kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like you're just going from town to town, making what money you can to eat for the night.
Basically, yeah.
True.
Vagrant's the wrong word. That's a bit harsh, but you know.
That's true. But I also love that like that aspect of like at one point when they first showed up in Tom's like hotel room, basically in room, he told what's her name? Delilah?
That's not the
Told her like, hey, go to the smith. Your custom knives are ready. Like
Dina.
his.
Dina. Is
Dina's custom knives are done, like that he has in his cloak.
Yep. Like he's
and I was like, oh my god, that's so cool.
He's training her to be not only like he's training her in different aspects that he has besides just the actual gleeman part. He's actually training her how to
Train
fight.
her
So the-
self-defense, yeah.
Kind of like
I loved that. That was so cool. And then
Tom's a badass.
shit happened, which was very sad.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing that had to happen so that Tom couldn't
I
be
know.
sucked back.
It's a
like,
catalyst to get
Yeah.
him out
The
of-
wheel weaves what the wheel wills.
basically.
It was sad.
Yeah.
It was big sad.
In a way.
Even he's like, yeah, I didn't want to like fall in love with her to begin with because she's supposed to be like a lot younger than him.
Yeah, he's supposed to be old.
Yeah, he's like
Like-
probably. I think he's supposed to be like in his 50s or 60s. I'll have to look that up in a second. But she's
he-
supposed to
she
be
was,
like
like,
young.
20s, 30s,
I think she's in her
upper
20s.
20s, yeah. Upper
Yeah.
20s,
It
lower
doesn't
30s.
it doesn't specify.
Older than Rand, younger than him.
A little older than Rand, yeah.
Yeah.
And then
And Tom's I think supposed to be in like his 50s or 60s. I'm pretty sure.
so then like I can't remember at what point, but the horn and the dagger get restolen.
Hold on, he's supposed to be
Oh.
70 at the start of the series.
What the
And he's out there
What?
like throwing knives around like they're floating and shit. It's awesome.
hell? I mean, that's super cool.
I actually
No,
Adjective is
70-year-old
super
is
old.
dating a 20-year-old. My grandfather
Well,
looked like he
you
was
have
in his like 50s, and no 20-year-old is dating my grandfather. There's
Well,
no
I
way.
think that's supposed to be like why Tom thinks it's so weird. We've talked about enough of that though.
Yeah,
Um,
but hey, love Tom.
Tom's a cool character.
Love Tom.
Tom
Tom's a
great.
good character.
What's it? Then the
I
the
mean,
horn and the dagger get stolen
Yeah.
back at some
Yep.
point.
Yep.
Did you guys
Yeah.
feel like that was kind of random, or was it just like, all right, this is eventually going to happen type of thing?
I feel like it's a little bit one of those situations where it's like you
Yep,
needed
like-
this to make the book a little. It's a mistake I see a lot in newer writers, especially, and like I think this is Jordan's early writing. I'm not sure if he did a bunch of other stuff. I'd have to look up Jordan's work. This is the only work of Jordan I've read, but like when you're doing a long series like this, a lot of times it comes to the time of like
You need something more to happen.
yeah, I don't want like we need more conflict, and I need to create conflict in a way that feels maybe not doesn't feel genuine, but it causes the plot to move to the next point. And that's one thing that I think he gets better, and a lot of writers get better about as they write more and more books. And the way I would see it is that, like, thinking from my own experience, your first couple drafts, this is what it feels like. It feels like this is like a maybe a third draft of a book where he like wrote the original plot and stuff. He fixed some things and then he did like a final touch up to make it look pretty, but he didn't fix like the major plot issues, like the major plot conveniences and stuff like that throughout the book to make it a little bit more coherent, which doing a long series like this is very difficult because a lot of times that would require him to take this book and go back and rewrite it from scratch to fix those holes, which he probably didn't have time to do because his publisher was probably like, yeah, yo, I need this book like now, dude. Because a lot of publishers are like, you have like 2 years and then I need the next book.
Which, I mean, I think he made like, well, not to get away from the book. I felt like he did the first, second, third, fourth within 2 years. I thought.
I just
maybe
had
3.
He did nothing before the Wheel of Time except write for Conan the Barbarian stories.
Okay, cool. Then yeah, this definitely feels like
so good.
This definitely feels like a first series.
And the
me.
first
and I've heard
4 books were done within 2 years.
Which means what probably happened, like speculating and talking about it, is he probably had the books already done.
Mm-hmm.
But he hadn't really gone back and revised them as many times. He had basically just written the first 4 books and then said, okay, I don't have an editor. I don't have a reading group. I don't have beta readers. I just have these books, which is, I mean, if you even go back and look at like Sanderson, right? Like, which I know that Marcus, you've read a lot of. Riker, I don't think you've read much Sanderson.
No.
But like, if you go back and look at even like we were talking about Mistborn earlier, Marcus, even before that, Elantris, like first books are really hard to do, and like you learn a lot.
I think he said the first 6 books he wrote he didn't publish, and Elantris was his first book. Talking about Sanderson,
yeah,
and even that is like considered nowadays to be like his D tier.
It's like, well, and D tier for Sanderson is like B tier for
for
most writers,
yes. Right.
Like, and I mean, that's how it goes. I mean, you just like, I think about the first novel that I wrote, which I'm not published yet, everyone. So don't worry, I'll let you know when I am.
What's it called?
Never. But the first book that I wrote in high school was absolute garbage. And like the amount of like times I've restarted that novel has been significant. And like you just learn so many different things. Not only as you age, but as you write more and more and more, that like sometimes you just have to basically be like, okay, this book's done. I'm done. I need to move on. And that's what this kind of feels like. It's like I'm satisfied enough with the story that I'm okay with this. And I'm sure that Jordan later on thought that, hey, I wish I could change these things.
But it needs to happen for later events.
Yeah, but like the way that it's all tied up, the important thing I would say to a lot of series, and I think we can hark back to Game of Thrones with this and the TV show specifically, is that the ending is the most important thing to a series. The beginning is important to make sure you can get people in because you want something interesting, but the ending has to be so good and you have to tie up all your loose ends so well that everyone will either forgive your mistakes or just be like so entranced by the ending that it makes it worth any errors that you make in the beginning. But if you mess up that ending, it's game over.
I try to defend Game of Thrones so much, by the way, but like even if people predicted your ending, if that's what you planned,
yes,
just do it. Like, I'm sorry, like even if you're like, I'm losing people's misconception, like oh, everyone predicted it, who cares?
Yeah, that's
what you should do.
I mean, we could talk about Game of Thrones.
Still satisfying.
Yes.
Well, but that's what makes it satisfying. That's what makes
because people studied it.
Exactly. It's the things that make books satisfying and gives us that catharsis feeling at the end is the fact that we have the setup to make sure that the book actually feels like, oh, this makes total sense why this happened.
Yes, absolutely.
Which, to tie it back to this book,
yes,
which is why I feel it's executed so well, is that it is set up from the beginning. You see where it's going to go. Maybe not who's going to blow the horn, but it's at least gonna get blown by the end of the book. You know that.
It's a what's called a Chekhov's gun. It's put on stage. So do you guys know what Chekhov's gun is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Put on
They better
stage.
shoot
It's
that
gotta
gun by the end of it.
So for the audience, which I'm assuming most people know what a Chekhov's gun is, which is basically when something is put on stage in the first act of a play, it must be shot. Like a gun is put on stage in the first act of a play, it must be shot by the end of the third act to be satisfying. Because it's basically setting up an item of use. That can be set up of foreshadowing, plot points, whatever. But
Yeah, we've watched Leonard Kenny. Have you watched all of that?
Does he talk about it in that show? Do they
Yes.
talk about it? Oh,
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Chekhov's gun's mentioned.
It's so fucking funny. It's so rich. Sorry, this is on a completely different tangent. It's talked by the meth heads in that show.
That's so interesting. I'm glad is that how you both know about that? Because I know that's a writing thing.
Yes.
It's a play writing thing.
Yeah.
But it
That's
is
how we
I
talked
learned about
about
Chekhov's gun.
But
Yeah,
it is
that's all we
talked
know about
about in
In
regular
Leonard.
writing too.
I mean, I learned
Okay.
about Occam's razor from Saints Row, so
Yeah,
This-
it's talked
okay.
about in Leonard Kenny, and that's how I know about it. And
Well-
then you mentioned it before to me at some other point, but
I mean, I talk about
it connected.
that's
to
like
me.
that's a big writing thing. That's a huge thing that you have to be aware of, and that's
Did
just
you continue on Leonard Kenny?
so funny. Okay,
It's such a good show.
let's jump into closer to the end with the Suldam and Damane. How did you guys like the Shanshan, their culture, stuff like that?
We got a big thing ahead of that.
Marcus, would you like to open this up, or would you like me to open this up?
Oh, right, we've got to talk about the girls
Escape from White Tower.
escaping the school.
Oh, right, we do have that thing to
There's
talk
such
about.
a bigger thing.
Yeah, we should talk about that
Yeah.
first. Let's talk about that
Hey,
first.
you know what, Riker? How about you go? Why don't you go first? What are your thoughts on the escape of White Tower?
I'm not gonna go on as big of a rant. I'm gonna save that for you. But I feel like the intelligence of these female characters specifically tends to go out the window whenever they need for this specific plot thing to
They
happen.
become plot devices.
Yeah.
And which I think is why you, Marcus, don't like them as much, because
all.
they are like, Jordan does the female characters, except for Swan and Sanche, and probably Moraine a little bit, does the female characters very dirty. And this is very much I need to get these characters over for the conclusion, but I don't know how to do that.
Hey, is Elizabeth home right now? I want to know what her thoughts are on these female characters in that second book.
I asked her to talk on this episode, and she was like, "Nah, fam, I'm not gonna do that. I don't remember that far back. It's been a while since she's read book 2."
That's fair.
I just feel like it. I know, given the time period that this was written in, boy, I just not much room for feminism in this part. It would make a lot of people upset.
Yeah, I mean,
Listen, females are people too.
Because they are, but at this part, Jordan didn't seem to think so.
I'm gonna go off.
So
Go off,
okay,
do it.
go off, and then I'll explain the writing elements of it, or talk about the writing elements of it a little bit.
I'm gonna start with fucking Nynaeve in general. So we learn that Nynaeve wants to become an Aes Sedai because she wants to get back at Moraine for taking her man away from her.
It's so bad.
And that was part of her whole like becoming an accepted. She's like, I'm here to fucking show Moraine up. And I don't remember the rest. Like that was it. That was
That's
like,
her motivation. That's it.
my motivation is to show Moraine that she's a piece of shit or something. Her also other motivation to leaving the Two Rivers is to bring back all these characters to her hometown. That's what she wants to do, and protect them. The three main boys and Egwene. To protect them, what does she do? She leaves all of them to go and become an Aes Sedai who she fucking hates and doesn't trust at all. Okay, great. Good good character development so far. I'm liking everything that's happening. Not. And
Motivation's
then,
life.
and then she becomes an accepted. Great, good for her. Awesome. Then this Red Aes Sedai, whose name I
Leandrin.
cannot remember,
Leandrin.
Leandrin, shows up and is like, "Hey, Rand is in trouble. He's in danger. You two need to come help." And she goes, "Are you sure?" She's like, "Oh yeah, no, for sure, yeah, 100%. He's in danger, and we need your help." Oh, okay, yeah. Let's,
I
yeah,
want to
absolutely.
interject something. Keep in mind, Nynaeve was also the wisdom of her village.
Yeah, she's supposed to be incredibly intelligent.
21, like, or 20. She's young to be a wisdom. And I listened to it the second time. Yes, she was a little better the second time. She asked all the right questions of like, "Are you sure? Blah blah blah. Where are they? How do you need our help? That doesn't make sense. Blah blah blah." She still came away saying, "Yep, absolutely. I'm gonna trust you, Aes Sedai, who has done nothing to earn my trust. I still hate Moraine, who has done everything to earn my trust. I'm gonna come and help the boys, mostly Rand, because every fucking female character in this fucking book loves Rand at eyesight because he's 6'6" and 700 pounds of muscle. I guess, I don't know.
He's tan with those gray eyes and red hair, boy.
Yeah, and he's Targaryen or
I
Targaryen.
mean, Nynaeve doesn't actually like Rand that way. Just
But
It was
interject.
she
more
wants to
like a
protect
worried
him.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
wants
he wants to
it's like a
protect him.
big sister thing.
Yeah, and it's
right.
mostly Moraine, or mostly Rand, that she's like, "I want to protect."
Well, I mean, but she knows. She knows that he's a dragon reborn and that like people are gonna be coming after.
Does
her.
he?
Yes, she does. Her, Egwene,
they
and
know.
Moraine all know.
I don't know. Okay, that's true. All right, no, you're right. But also, he's just like, all right, yeah, let's leave the tower. Let's go with you with Egwene. And Egwene is her character being like, yeah, I'm coming to help. That all makes sense.
At least Egwene makes sense.
Yeah, that does.
At least Egwene makes sense.
I was gonna say, I feel like
Egwene is a piece of shit.
I feel like Egwene and Elaine and Min, if they had been the only three to go, would have made sense because I feel like they're gullible in this book. Well, I feel like even Min. I feel like you take Min out, Elaine and Elaine and Egwene, you could probably convince me
All
as
the
a
Ains.
reader
There's a lot of Ains.
that they would be gullible enough to believe Leandrin and go with her to save Rand and be kidnapped. But like, I don't.
But
think,
not Nynaeve.
I don't
They
think
set up-
Nynaeve or Min would have been gullible enough.
Yeah, especially Min.
Yeah.
And Nynaeve has been set up to be this like super skeptic. She is very intelligent, as much as we complain about her.
Yeah,
She is
very intelligent.
which is what leads to her skepticism.
Very skeptic. Doesn't want any training from their travel from where they go to the White Tower. She's like, I don't want you guys just training. You guys are all pieces of shit.
I mean,
I'm gonna
that's
be the
mostly a
best Aes Sedai.
stubbornness thing more than anything. But
I
yeah.
do like that her stubbornness ties into her ability to use magic,
Ah!
where it's very on or off. It's like she's either
Okay.
all in or not at all.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about this a little bit because thinking back to it now, like there's a lot of things that we've critiqued and stuff, and this is a big one for me too. And I think that it's one of the reasons that I said in the last Drink and Discuss that this book I did not like. This book is my least favorite in the series, and I think it's because there's so many of these like inconsistencies throughout the entirety of the book that are like, wait, I have to do a lot of like leaping for.
Yeah.
With
Yes.
this for sure is a huge point in the book of like plot. They become plot devices. They become convenient for the plot to move because Jordan as a writer wants all of the characters in the conclusion of the book. And we kind of talked about this outside the review, but they don't necessarily need to be there other than to reveal
At all?
to reveal the Suldam and Damani side of the Shanchan culture,
Yeah.
which we could have easily gotten from either another, like he could have tied in a different side character into that, or brought some other, like one of them could have been there, or like maybe the farmer chick was there.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
and she gets taken away, and like Rand gets to realize, like we get to see her
We get
perspective,
to learn.
and we get to learn about the culture, because that's the whole point of them being there, is we get to learn about the Suldam and Damani. But there was other ways to do that.
I guess my biggest complaint of the entire White Tower, of them becoming Aes Sedai and learning how to channel, I wanted more. I wanted to listen, like how magic works in this system and all of this, and all we got was these fucking 16-year-olds falling over Galad and Galand, or
Gawain,
Gal Big Dick. I don't know. It was just so frustrating, and they're like, we should become best friends, and they're like, well, yeah, we should. This is how people talk, right? We're best friends now.
So
I will.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, you go
About
first.
Galad and Gawain, I like
but so
you-
pissed. I knocked my
from the
camera
perspective
out.
of the female characters, they make you seem like, I think it's Gawain is the half brother or the step brother,
Gawain,
right? Gawain.
it's Galad and Gawain. Thank you guys
Galad
are
and
messing me up.
Gawain.
Gawain.
It's
So
Galad the.
Galad is the half brother,
He's
who
the
is
half-brother.
super sexy, very attractive.
But they make him seem, at least from the female perspective, that there's something off, or at least like, oh, we
He's-
can't trust this guy.
He's so determined in his like
He's so
goodness.
powerful.
His righteousness.
he's
right?
lawful good paladin. He's
Yeah.
so
Yes.
lawful good paladin that sometimes he's too lawful good paladin. That he's basically like, yeah, you shouldn't be doing that, so I'm going to turn you into the authorities.
I kinda like him.
That's basically his character.
Yeah, that's where I was gonna go with this. I like him. I like him. They don't
I'm
trust him.
assuming you
I
get
like
more of
him.
him. I'm assuming
Yeah.
you get more of him in the third and fourth book. At the moment, I don't give a fuck about him.
You get more of him throughout the
Okay.
entirety of the series,
Yeah.
but
Sure.
not in the next couple books.
This is the most you get of those two, particularly in a while. Which is
Okay.
why I'm just like, I like him. I don't know.
Okay, Marcus rant done. Basically, yeah. This is
Oh, it'll go on.
this is one of the worst parts of, I think, Jordan's
Yes.
writing of female characters, and I think that after the first couple books, he probably got critiqued on this by either his wife or other critics
Whoever this editor was.
or his editor. Someone critiqued him because there is a significant shift later in the series of his female characters, and they go like, we got Swan Sanche, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's awesome. And like that is much more of a bar that we see throughout the ending of the series than the beginning. The beginning is definitely, I cannot defend him on that. It's bad.
It is bad.
So far, the female characters in this book are there to tell us how attractive Rand and other male characters are.
Correct.
That's it.
You can't argue.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's that's basically, and
That's
it's
all they're doing, and they're like, we're best friends
To be-
because we're females.
I'm not going to defend him, although I did want to bring up the point of like, with you brought up the magic, you wanted to see how more of the magic system works and stuff like
Yes.
that. So
That's what I wanted.
so with that, the female characters is indefensible. I can't do anything about that. With the magic system though, this is much more of a lighter magic system rather than like a hard magic system.
Mm-hmm.
Which is more reminiscent of what we like would think of like Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. When we think of Gandalf, his magic isn't really fully explained. He just has magic that he can do at certain times. They do it. It is a little bit of plot convenience. But with you, I know you've read a ton of Brandon Sanderson, and Brandon Sanderson's magic system is very hard magic. This is never going to be that. Like there are elements of like the Wheel of Time is like in between those a little bit,
That's a good way to put it.
and
Which
you'll get elements of it, but you're never going to get the like, okay, so the scientific way that this works is that this person burns metal within their system, and it can only be like this type of metal, and this type of metal does this exact type of power, and this exact type of power has this drawback to it. That is not how the system works at all.
Which I figured, but I also didn't want the female character's magic to be like, imagine a flower, like, well, I can't remember what it was now.
Imagine a flower budding, and what they do is basically
budding.
you do this exercise to tap into the power by imagining a flower.
It's just such a like feminist type of view for magic kind of that I just was
feminist. Like it's a male writer imagining a female. It's very obvious that's a male writer imagining a female character, and what a
like
female,
imagine a flower bud.
A very traditional feminine quality.
And I just didn't like it at all. And then it was like, oh, imagine, like Rand is like, let me enter the fucking void, and do whatever I want.
Which I think that, judging by what I've seen from the TV show and stuff like that, that will be addressed and fixed within the show,
because it seems pretty intense when we see a female channeling in the trailer.
We get a lot. I think that they are going to solve that issue, and I'm glad, because that's one of the biggest issues I have with the early books. Okay, let's move on to the Shan-Chan, because we still got a few more things to cover.
A lot of shit to cover.
Yeah, but they're so bad.
Holy. Oh god. Okay.
So Shan-Chan, let's just talk about them in general. Riker, I know that you really like them a lot.
I love them in the fact that
you hate them.
I described them earlier as I just like the culture so much, and I love that
you love to hate them.
Made me feel that way. It's very counterculture.
They're Joffrey.
They view it as just completely normal, this complete domination of a human being, particularly with Aes Sedai, and you feel the desperation that particularly Egwene has when she's collared. And there's nothing you can do. You feel just as powerless as her.
Yeah.
And so I love the shit out of how these guys are written.
I would definitely say this makes Egwene's character, like, those moments with the collar don't make up for the mistakes that were made earlier in the book that we discussed. But they do give, I think, Egwene more depth and character and anger. And and that carries through. Like, that is not just like this book, it carries into the future.
It does have lasting effects on her. It gets called back later.
It's trauma. She gets trauma from this event, and I think Jordan does a good job of calling back, and again, he gets better at female characters as the series progresses, but the calling back on the trauma is very important, because it shows that actions and consequences like carry through the entirety of the series. They don't just like happen, and there's more things that happen like that, which I'm not going to spoil for you guys, that I'm very excited for you guys to get to. Marcus, any thoughts on the Shan-Chan and stuff like that?
Oh, it was fantastic how quickly I hated them.
Yeah. It's like on a dime.
It was impressive.
Which is
ironic. It was also just like, to me, it was more strange that like a Nynaeve and Elaine were able to escape somehow very quickly and just get out of the reaches of them. And then we just fast forwarded 3 weeks to Min, who is completely free.
Well, Min can't channel, so she's of
no consequence to them.
Right, but we didn't get any like aspect of them like trying to put the collar on her. It was just like,
so the Suldam can actually sense if a woman can channel if they're near enough to them.
Yeah.
Because
I thought like that was only if the collar was on them.
No. The basic premise of it is that, and that you get revealed at the end of this book, is that the Suldam, the girls learn that the Suldam are actually girls and women capable of becoming Aes Sedai. Okay. They're people, and the Damani are girls and women that are born with the power. So like people like Egwene and Elaine and Nynaeve are born with the power, and they have no choice, but they will eventually channel regardless. They'll either die or they'll learn to channel.
Gotja. I just felt like
Suldam have the capability to learn.
They can be taught.
I guess I felt like there was a little bit of it, and this might have been with listening instead of reading. Mm-hmm. Where there's like those gaps between character, arcs or like character perspectives. Mm-hmm. But I just felt it was strange where it's just like all of a sudden Min is like, hey, coming to visit you for the third week in a row. How you doing? And Gwen's like, well, you know, pretty freaking terrible, obviously.
Yeah, I think
Like,
that's just another problem of what we've talked about before is that he just
Yeah.
like there just
He
needs to be
skips.
more. There needed
The
to be
downside
more,
of listening over.
well,
reading.
and there needed to be more
Word.
depth to these
Yeah.
these female characters earlier on in the series.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Min was like, oh, hey, by the way, I found a captain that can get us out of here. So I'm gonna get you out of here.
Captain Domon, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Domon.
I believe it's
just-
Domon again.
I just wished I would have seen.
Comes up more in the series.
Yeah, he's around a lot.
Jesus, I don't even remember him the first book. Obviously, when you said that,
He's the one.
just-
He's a river ship captain.
yeah. Then once you said that, I'm like, oh, isn't he the river ship guy?
Yep.
But
Every
I just
time.
wish we would have seen Min a little bit more, especially since at the end of the book, which we're gonna get to, she is such a prevalent person.
Yeah.
At the
You're
end
like,
of the
damn,
book,
where were you the entire time?
yeah, I just wish we would have gotten a little bit more of like, hey, Min is like, oh my god, Gwen is like a slave, obviously, apparently, and it's just like I'm here to try to get her out and like try to figure out a way to get her out and talk to captains
So
and stuff.
I mean, so the female character thing, right, is compounded and made even worse by the like him having so many female characters that don't have like depth and personality to them. And like again, that's something that's solved further into the series. So
Yeah, and
Right.
unfortunately, Min is a casualty of
yeah,
that.
men. A lot of the girls in the first couple books are kind of casualties of this poor development in their characters. Okay,
That's okay. It gets better.
let's jump because we've got a few more things to still talk about. So
With Rand and
let's talk about the portal stones because I don't think we really care about the fight at the manor, the
Actually, I
way.
really like
Nothing
the
really.
manor. I really like the
I
manor.
like some of the elements of the manor and like the fact that he basically indirectly drags Tom back into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which
Tavaren or
Ta'Veren,
Tavaren, whatever. Yeah, Tavaren.
I feel like Tom's gonna be super pissed at
sense.
Rand for talking to him and then making that kill his girlfriend.
It's one of those things where it's like Tom's like, damn it.
Right.
Here we go again.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like Tom doesn't blame Rand for what he did because he doesn't know what he's doing, but Tom's also just like, are you kidding me?
Right. I'm fucking pissed and like
Yeah.
my life is going to
He,
shit.
like
Yeah, I
he
don't
doesn't
think
blame
he blames it on Rand.
He doesn't blame it on Rand, but he also is just like, I just can't get out. There's no way for me
Right.
to get out. We're talking about Rand pulling Tom in and stuff like that.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, I think we finished our point on that. Like Rand is basically like Tom kind of knows what's going on. So
But I'm really interested in what Tom did beforehand. Like, why was he so involved in this game of houses? Because it was said multiple times.
Yep.
Yeah.
For him,
He
like,
knows how
oh,
to
you
play
were
the
a
great game.
major player. And then all of a sudden, this country bumpkin who threw invitations in to a fire made you become a major player again, and we killed your love interest, by the way. Cool.
Just by mere association with Rand.
Yeah.
Ta'Veren.
Taveren.
Oh boy, that's a plot point.
I was gonna say, do you know about that yet, Riker?
What's that?
About why Tom, like how Tom was involved in this stuff?
No, not yet.
It comes up. I'm not talking about it. I didn't talk about it. We didn't talk
The
about it
answer's
at
no.
all. Riker doesn't know yet.
I didn't want
so
to know that.
I didn't figure. I thought it came up later in the series. So, okay. So let's talk about the portal stones. The cool parts about the portal stone because we've already complained about the portals.
We already complained about the convenience.
So
Right.
they do use them to get to Falma instantaneously, but with the downside of it basically taking them as long as it would have taken them anyway to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Like 3 weeks or something? Or
Yeah, it basically takes them like they're basically teleported there instantly, but they lose 3 weeks of time
right.
as they're like transported throughout these multitude of worlds.
Because there's got to at least be some consequence of traveling that vast amount of distance. I like that.
And then they live 1,000 different lives.
Yeah, they
or
basically
something.
live like a bunch of different alternate universes. It's basically, as we were kind of talking about before, it's basically a giant what if.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like a what if this happened? What if this happened? And the thing that I think I really like about that part is that, well, one, I just really like the narration line of "I win again, Luce Theron,"
Yeah,
Every
that was very interesting.
which is
And
basically
creepy.
like, oh, and the Dark One wins, and the Dark One wins, and he wins in this world, and in this world, and in this world, because the events don't go perfectly to cause him to lose,
Yeah.
which
Right.
also
It's like
sets stakes a little bit.
It's also like the 14 million timelines that Doctor Strange visited in Endgame.
Correct.
But this is the
Right.
one.
Yeah,
This
that-
could be the one that
Like this
they
could be
win.
the one
Yeah.
that is different.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I would almost say is like is counter to the stakes.
Yes and no. I feel like it like obviously like let's be honest. We probably know that this series in the long term is going to end in a positive way, right? Like I feel like
Right.
that's assumed
Yeah.
in the contract
Except for
of most
Nynaeve.
in most fantasy series.
Nynaeve dies, right?
Just
Okay.
wait, just wait. I feel like that's a contract in most fantasy series, though, that you know that like good is going to triumph over evil in some way in the end of the series. You already know
Yeah.
that walking in. This is basically a way for him to be like, hey, guess what? Evil could have won in all these different ways, and it also fills in a few. I feel like it fills in a few plot holes moving forward of like, what if Matt had betrayed Rand? You know, and like the fact that these characters remember living all those lives, I think is fantastic because it sets
Helps
up.
inform decisions.
Yeah, it helps them like be like, I swear to God, I'm not gonna betray you, man.
Mm-hmm.
Helps reconcile a bit of hurt feelings that happened earlier in the book.
Yeah, I did like that. Matt came out and like, Rand, I'm so sorry. I'm not
I'm
going to
sorry for
betray
being
you.
Shitty. Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
going to betray you.
Like
I'm
you're
not that person.
Like I'm terrified of what you're becoming, but I'm still your friend.
Yeah. It was a cool moment.
And
I
that
Right.
Go ahead, Riker.
Oh, I was gonna say, we talked about this in the unrecorded section, but I enjoyed the display of Rand's power in a different way.
Yeah.
Because Varen says about the portal stones that a normal single Aes Sedai is not able to power this stone.
Right.
And Rand just, boom, does it. I
Which
love
is
that.
which is why I thought only male, quote unquote, Aes Sedai, the male channelers, can use these portal stones.
A regular Aes Sedai can. They just need female Aes Sedai
Enough.
to be more powerful, need to be linked.
Or
Right.
To do
or they need to be people like Egwene, Nynaeve, Elaine. Like Nynaeve is supposed to be like the most powerful Aes Sedai in like centuries.
Yeah, with
Right,
how
but I
much
thought-
she can
I
channel.
thought they put Egwene up to that. Like
Egwene-
Egwene was like the one who was like, oh my god, you can channel at this age
I
without
think so. She has
instruction.
the most unique.
Yeah,
abilities.
Egwene is
Uh.
also very powerful, and she's very quick to learn. But Nynaeve, in raw power, the amount of power she can channel is supposed to be the strongest of the three of them.
Yeah, like
Because she
through
channels
rage.
that anger. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's just like she just has she can naturally draw on more of the power, but she also has the consequence of having to be mad to do it.
Yeah.
She's
But-
like, I want to be with Lan.
Which I like that 0 to 100 with her,
Yeah.
as far
that's
as her
good.
channeling goes.
But no, I agree. I think that showing like, I mean, I think it's said in this book that male channelers have more power naturally than women
Mhm.
Yes.
channelers. But women have different abilities that make them
Yes.
more powerful than men. Like they can link, they can do a few other things that men cannot do.
Right.
Oh.
And men also go fucking nuts.
Right,
using
because
their
of-
magical abilities.
Yeah. I mean,
because
but that's a
of
consequence
the last
of action.
dragon.
Yeah.
The last dragon, right?
It said that
The
the
dragon,
Dark One
the dragon,
poisoned it.
the dragon and the 100 companions basically sealed the Dark One and the Forsaken away, and that tainted the male half of the power.
Yeah.
Yes,
Can't remember
so-
what his name is now, but
Luce Theron Telamon.
yeah, that guy, Luce Theron.
Luce
He
Theron.
made he tainted the male side.
It's blamed on him for sealing the Dark One, but I think it was the Dark
Yeah.
One that actually did it.
It's the Dark
Oh.
One taints it, but it's explained later in the series, and I don't know if I want to go into spoilers for. I
No,
don't.
don't.
It's not.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
not
please don't.
It's not really
Yeah.
a big spoiler, but yes, there is like, it's the Dark One who taints it, but it's the fault of Lews Therin and his hunter companions that kind of like
the consequence
yeah.
of it. Yeah.
There's like a bunch of stuff that we get to learn about that happens in the past that we learn about here.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, yeah, 1,000 lives. I mean, that also sets up the Inktar stuff too, because he also gets to live those lives of never being able to escape his choices, which is set up and foreshadowed in that scene. I remember listening to that and be like, aha!
It's like,
knew it'd be
that's
set
where
up.
the hint was. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of hints throughout, but like that's the most obvious hint of like he's like, oh god, there's no escape for me.
Which sets up the redemption.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
Let's go to the heist. I love how you put that, the heist. I'm
I
just
like
gonna
that's called the
talk
heist.
about like let's just jump to, because basically like all Perrin, Matt, and Inktar do is go in with Rand and grab the horn and the dagger and peace. Rand is the one that actually does something, which is the battle with the Blade Master.
Which, and I would even say like this is the one part of the book that Nynaeve has a very interesting character development where she doesn't give a fuck if she takes a slave slash fuck, what are they called?
Damane?
Damane. She just takes
Damane,
one,
yeah.
figures out the collar, which I was like, that's kind of a plot convenience, whatever, blah blah blah. But she does it and doesn't give a fuck to save Egwene.
Yeah, like
that was the one
cold.
Stone Cold. I loved. Finally, there was something I was like, all right, I like Nynaeve for that specific part.
She also has that moment of like Egwene wants to just murder these women for like enslaving others, and she's like, no, this isn't justice. Leaving them here to be found by their people and have their people realize that all women who are Sul'dams can channel, that's justice.
Yes.
And like it's hard, like, because a part of me, I remember reading that part or listening to that part and being like, wow, yeah, I really want Egwene to kill these women.
Yeah, like I was all for it.
But like it is done in a way that's like, I do think that's one of the benefits of like having Nynaeve in this end conclusion, is having like her basically take the traditional violence of like, let's end this with violence and bloodshed, which is traditional in fantasy, to like, no, that's not actually justice. Like this, we have them completely trapped.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere. Their people will find them, and
they better hope that the person that finds them does not reveal that they can be collared.
Yeah, right. Which was like one of those points where it's like, I loved her for doing that, but I thought it was also a plot convenience that she was like, oh, I figured out the collars like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, figuring out the collars is like simple, but yeah, I feel like that moment is really good, and I do think that those moments come more and more throughout the series. Yeah. Like, this is the last time I feel like there's as much, this is convenient, as we go into the future.
Yes, I really hope so.
There is less. Less.
Okay, so then now we can get into the heist.
The Blade Master.
Heist. And
who cares about the heist?
Master battle.
The Blade Master battle. Okay, let's just talk about that. He kills Turok, who I actually had to look up his name because I totally forgot.
I didn't know it. I just remember the Blade Master.
Oh my god. Riker, did you go into this and be like, I mean, obviously Rand is gonna win, but like,
yeah.
With like it's gonna be plot convenience.
I was just like,
stuff.
We're getting near the end of the book. This dude's just gonna get murked like a bitch.
Yeah, and it was just, as soon as he went, oh, I see you're a blade master, and it was just like, oh, his sword has a heron mark too. I went, oh, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Rand is just gonna destroy him for whatever convenience reason.
I mean,
enter the void, whatever. It doesn't matter. I was just like, why introduce that part that he's a blade master?
Setup.
I don't.
I was gonna say I disagree with this part, because like I know you don't particularly like this part, Riker. I don't think you like this part that much either. If I'm getting the sense, like you're like, oh, that's very okay.
I mean, I thought it was cool that we've seen this tap into the void uh mantra throughout the book, and it's nice to see it kind of pay off with a skilled user of the sword as well. But yeah, it's just one of those. What's the how do you pronounce it?
Taviran.
Taviran.
Urine.
It's just like you start to feel that pull a little bit more.
You're right.
So
You definitely do.
So a couple things. One, I actually don't mind this choice that much. One, because this isn't the final conflict in the book. This is just like
It's true.
there's a character here. We need to overcome him. It sets up Rand actually earning his sword, and it actually shows two things. One, Land's basically a blade master anyway.
True.
He just doesn't have a Heron. I don't think he has a Heron Mark sword at
He does
this
not.
point in the series.
No.
I think he might get one. I don't remember if he gets one or not. But he's basically a blade master. I mean, he's a king, and he knows how to fight. He's been fighting his whole life. And his
He's a
father,
warrior, yeah.
and his father, and the people of the Two Rivers, which will come up later, I promise. Like, it basically sets up that, like, there is a way. The fact that Rand wins, one, shows that he's worthy of the blade that he carries, which is important moving into the future, because he basically hasn't felt worthy up to this point, but now he actually has slain another blade master, which means he would have a blade of his own. And the fact that there's kind of, besides the Taviran thing, there's kind of like a hint that it's not really Taviran. He's a lot more skilled than he thinks he is.
That's true. There's a lot of self-doubt that gets injected
Correct.
into his mental thought process.
And I think that pays off later. Again, I think you'll look back on this moment and it'll be more interesting. But yeah, right now I can understand why you guys feel like this is convenient.
It just felt strange. It was just like, oh hey, he's been masquerading as this blade master, and everyone's like, oh, he's too young, blah blah blah. He's like, yeah, I know. It's from my father. Blah, blah, blah.
There's more elements of that are set up with even within book 3. There's a fight that I think Riker will know what I'm talking about, that shows that the Two River people might be a little like that.
There's
Manetheren,
more to them than meets the eye.
Manetheren bloodline still lingers.
It's
there.
very strong.
Yeah.
So they are naturally warriors, but they have no idea that they're capable of it.
Right. And you kind of get that aspect of like the old bloodline. And I have a prediction that I think it's pretty much 100% spot on. So, I'll let you know in a second on that one.
Once we get to your predictions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's get to Inktar's redemption arc.
Yeah, my boy.
In general, before we get to that, because Riker's wrong in that, but what did you think of that whole heist scene in general? Of like them getting the horn back?
Oh, who cares?
Oh, I'm with you. I thought it was just like, oh, I don't give a fuck.
That's why I
it's just
basically skipped over that and was like, okay, Rand fights the Blade Master. That's the only.
That is the
important
most
thing that
interesting
happened.
part of that part. Yeah.
Like the girls going and like saving Egwene is more interesting than them breaking into this place.
Yeah.
And then Rand's fight. That whole thing is set up to basically be like Rand's fight with the Blade Master. Like, this is a very big moment that we've kind of mentioned throughout this discussion of like, this is a very big moment of, this was a scene that Jordan wanted to write, and you can very much tell that Jordan wanted to put this in the book, and he made his plot fit those scenes that he wanted to write.
Yeah.
And those themes he wanted to tell.
Yeah, 100%.
I will say, the sword fight between Rand and the Blade Master is an execution of a setup that we were talking about earlier that this book does very well.
Yeah.
At least setting up these conflicts and executing on them.
Okay.
Yeah, like, I mean, like, with the training with Land, it's basically the payoff here and then with the final battle, which we'll get to.
Yeah, and then the self-doubt that's throughout the book,
Yep.
and him continuing to practice. It is a payoff. I will definitely acknowledge that.
It's like there's parts of it that could have been like, he could have had others, like there's the Trolloc fight where he's in the forest when he steals the horn, and like Marcus, you're like, oh, he only kills one Trolloc there, but he doesn't. He kills like tens of them. Like, he's killing a bunch of them, and Loyal's like, we gotta get out of here, man.
Yeah, he does slaughter them.
Yeah, he's like murdering them.
Oh, really? I thought like they just mentioned one Trolloc.
No, he kills the first
dead.
one. He kills the first one, and then he goes into the void, and he's just like a massacre machine. and he just slaughters literally everyone. Like he just starts killing them until Loyal's like, yeah, we should probably get.
He's like, we need to go.
And no one was like, oh, hey, you guys hear the fucking Trollocs screaming?
Well, that's why he kept drawing more and more Trollocs to them.
Right.
So he was like, that was the first hint.
Got into like a battle trance almost.
Yeah, it's basically what the Void is supposed to be. And I think
Gotcha.
that one more of those scenes could have really paid off that Blade Master scene to show that, like, yeah, he's made significant progress even in the short time he's had to train with Lan.
I guess maybe I don't like the Void, like the description of the Void that much.
It's
basically him becoming.
It's basically
better.
depression.
It's basically his angst coming out.
I will say it changes. I'll say that it changes.
Right. I mean, it's him drawing the one power as a male.
It's another thing that's like been. It's another thing that I think is like set up as a thing that's been passed down from student to teacher, from through generations and generations, that no one really understands where it came from. And so his father taught it to him, but they didn't know that where it came from was how men channeled the power.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things that's like constant, like, and that's what Jordan does a lot of that, where like things are like myths are misinterpreted, and that's actually something I really love about the series. Is like the characters in the present day don't understand the history of what got them there because it's been so long in the past that they're legends, and like it doesn't, like, we talk about this with like a lot of people not believing that the Trollocs were real in the last book, right? Like a lot of people were like, Trollocs, those aren't real, those are just myths.
Yeah, those are just a story.
And that's
like the West Side.
Yes, and that's like a lot of what these things are. They're traditions that have been passed down from like person to person to person to person, but no one really understands where they came from in the first place.
And then we get this guy who could channel, and it's just like, embrace the void. He does. Boom, he's able to channel. Like, it's like, oh shit, never made that. I actually never made that connection before.
Yep. It gets more and more obvious as we go throughout the series that a lot of these traditional aspects of the culture were actually practical aspects of the culture previously.
That's so fucking cool. Yep. That's damn cool.
That's one thing. That's one thing I love. I love that about the Wheel of Time. Okay. Let's get. We got other stuff to talk about.
I know.
We're almost to 2 hours now. So.
I know. We've been here forever.
Inktar.
Piece of shit. Fucking.
I love him. My boy. I was so upset. I didn't cry. It definitely made me emotional, and I did say the words, oh, "My boy," when he was like staying behind to give the group time to go. I loved it.
I don't think I cried the first time, and I don't think I cried this time, but I definitely cried the second time that I read it.
Yeah, it's super emotional.
And I know Marcus doesn't like this part, but there's
find the horn.
I'm a sucker for a redemption story, baby.
I mean, the fact that Rand, like everyone else, pieces, and Rand basically stays behind, and Inktar tells him the truth of him being a dark friend and stuff like that. And Rand being like, all right, I'm going to give you your funeral rites right now. You do what you think is right. And like that whole like sequence of dialogue, to me, the reason it's so emotional is because of all the setup that is done for that moment. Because there are so many pieces that are like the embrace of the embrace of the mother is set up throughout the entirety of their time in Feldara. And like it's set up with them learning about that culture, and the fact that Rand harkens back to that, and basically and like Inktar says like it's never too late for a man to find the light, and like gives his life to like because of the portal stones, right? Like he probably wouldn't have done that if the portal stones hadn't shown him thousands of lives, because the whole point of him going after the horn, and he admits it, is that he wanted a way to redeem himself. He was going to take the horn to the Dark One's prison and basically just work his way through the blight with the horn. But he realizes that's kind of a selfish reason to do it. And so he actually redeems himself in this timeline. Marcus is like, okay,
Marcus does not like it.
Sorry. So like.
It's okay. It's okay. You don't have to like it. We can move on to the next thing. Everyone's
No,
entitled to their
like,
own opinion.
I more so want to like tell like why I thought it was just so strange because, like, as you said, Rand was like, "I'm gonna give you your death rights right now." That's something that, like, a lord would do. In the entire book, Rand is saying, "I am not a lord. I'm a shepherd. I'm a
but that's
farm
also
boy."
that's also the time when like he starts to like be like, there's no turning back.
Yeah, he starts. That's basically an acceptance of his role.
True, but it was just like,
And it's
Jesus, like, come on. And then it also came to like, I was starting to have flashbacks to the first book where we were having this like with Perrin, Perrin
Perrin.
Faye.
Oh, Padon.
Padon Faye was the big bad.
Fane. Yeah.
Fane. Padon Fane.
Padon Fane was the big bad, and we had that big like revelation at the end.
Not the big bad, but
yeah, right.
He was a bad.
Like, he was the bad who, like, I found you guys basically.
Yeah.
And this is why the Dark Lord is after you, because I was there. I felt like we had this same thing with Inktar, where he's just like, oh, that archer who didn't actually hit Rand, who missed, that was me, who let him in to shoot you. Oh, you weren't able to leave because I told everyone to lock the gates down.
I mean, he's also the one who let Padon Fane free.
Yep.
Yeah, and that it was just like, I was like, oh no, are we gonna have a? I just didn't like the second big reveal. I guess as much.
I mean, like, I understand why you probably wouldn't like that but I don't think they serve the same. Like, they serve similar purpose, but they don't serve the same purpose. Like, Padon Fane is like this outsider, and like we talked about this outside of this recording,
right?
But Padon Fane is this outsider, and the first book is all these dark friends that are constantly trying to capture Rand, Mat, and Perrin.
Mm-hmm.
But Inktar is the one that we've spent the entirety of the book with, and like Faldara is basically like, yeah, there's no dark friends here, and there's like this
Rand.
honor, and they both like each other.
They've got a good relationship,
and there's just this moment of like, literally anyone I know can be a dark friend.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be someone who's just this faceless figure.
And I would say there's also
people close to me.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I would say there's also the difference between the irredeemable sinner and the redeemable one.
Yeah.
With Padon Fane just being almost cartoonishly evil.
Oh.
Yeah.
And Inktar being, like, as we were saying, had that relationship with Red. He felt like a member of the group, and you wanted him to be a good guy. And when it was revealed as a bad guy, or at least working against the group in so many different ways, it hit hard.
It sets the tone of the rest of the series that it's not like, I feel like the first book, and the reason this is different is because in the first book is this very clear line of, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, and it makes this line in between them really gray, and it means that like people on both sides of the conflict can actually be wrong and right in their own ways, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, 100%. I understand like that, and I love that aspect of it. But just throughout the entirety of the book, every time Inktar talked, god damn, I was just like, shut up, man. All you care about is the fucking horn. And it was just so annoying.
I mean that's we've already discussed this point, right? Like, Jordan needed to flush out some of these characters a little bit more, especially the female characters, but Inktar's another one who suffers from poor character development, and like, he like the I'm chasing after the horn thing was done in a way that sets it up well, but it could have been done to make him a little bit more of a well-rounded person rather than more of a cardboard cutout until the very end.
Yeah. I just wish he had one more aspect to him other than I want to find the horn.
This is what you get for reading like Stormlight and stuff first before you read these books.
I mean, it's very true. I just wish there was one more aspect to him.
I need to read Stormlight.
Stormlight is basically, I would say, the like inheritor of this type of series.
Yeah,
Like it's the next
fantastic.
step. Like Lord of the Rings is the first. I know there's other fantasy books in between Lord of the Rings and the Wheel of Time. I understand. But the Wheel of Time is like a really big scene, like epic fantasy, and I think it's one of the biggest epic fantasies that most people can agree on in between Lord of the Rings and modern day fantasy. And then I feel like Stormlight's the next step.
It's Stormlight's more character driven.
Yeah.
It has way more complete characters.
Stormlight is extremely character driven.
Yeah. It'll make you depressed.
Yeah. I mean, true. Well,
yeah.
I think we've already talked about. I've actually talked about that in my Rhythm of War video. So
yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. So the horn. What do you guys think of Matt blowing the horn?
I loved it. Sorry, that came right out and said it.
I'm not gonna lie. Until you just said Matt blew the horn, I thought Rand did. Now might be because I listened to it, and I was like, just
it's very
trying
brief.
to get to the end of it.
It's very much like hey, I'm gonna take this. Okay, we're in a desperate situation. I'm blowing this horn.
I mean, it definitely makes you think that Rand's the destined one to blow it. I will say
but once you say that, I'm like, oh, that's right. Rand was just like, I'm not gonna do it, and Matt did it. Yeah, which goes into my prediction.
Yeah, he did guess that.
Okay.
Matt was good, or at least one of the other boys was going to be the one to blow the horn.
No, my next prediction.
Oh, your next
Matt.
Prediction.
Specifically Matt.
We'll get that, but like, I don't know if any of you guys have, or anyone out there in the audience has played some good old Warhammer Fantasy. But we got the leader, we've got the horn blower, and we've got the standard bearer, and I thought that was so funny, but also like really good. I think that having Rand not blow it also like relieves a little bit of pressure from him.
Yeah,
and like gives it to like agency to these other characters to realize like Rand is literally not going to be the only one doing stuff throughout the series. Like other characters have very important objectives throughout the series that they must accomplish.
Yeah, this is very much the start of, oh, Matt's gonna be a big deal.
Yep.
This is the definitive start to it.
Right. Which is in my predictions, and I'll let you know that later. It was just the only really strange part of this last sequence was all of a sudden the White Cloaks kind of like showing up and being like, hey,
yeah, the White Cloaks needed more setup.
I can't remember your name, but like you're gonna stay behind and tell the story of my death as I go into battle against the Horn of Valir,
the armies of Hawkwing.
He believed that he was going to his death to fight the Shan Chan and stuff like that.
Yeah, evil ones.
And they thought they were servants of the Dark One, and because White Cloaks.
Okay.
But I think that part's just supposed to be like I mean, we're seeing it from Rand's perspective. We're not really seeing a bunch of the other perspectives that we get later into the series as well.
Right.
But like, it's basically supposed to be like, oh, we're trapped between two armies.
And there's 8 of us.
Not even. There's 4 of us.
Oh yeah, there's 4 of us.
It's Rat.
Which completed the
Matt, Rand, and Perrin.
prophecy.
It was the prophecy, yeah.
Of like 5 will ride forward, 4 will ride back.
Oh, I didn't even know that was a prophecy.
Oh, yeah. That was Moraine's whole. Moraine was never in the story really, other than she went to a library and read a book.
Moraine's mostly like out of this story and starts to come back a little bit in the next one. But that's because she's doing Moraine stuff.
Yeah, that was the whole thing. Like 5 will ride forward, 4 will ride back.
It's one of the prophecies of the Dragon Reborn. It's just not one I remembered. Like it's one of the very minor ones. I actually did not catch that one, but I mean, that's not surprising because there's like a billion of them. and it's set up for
Yeah.
the
Right.
entirety of the series.
Yeah. Which I got a question later, but that's fine. So, right, the horn's blown, fucking crazy things happen.
As an ending to the book, to these books does.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's happened. Rand is fighting a
You're fighting Baalzamon in the
Flame-
sky.
a flame-masked person in the sky.
It's Baalzamon.
It's balls.
Balzamon.
Right, it's
Yeah.
Bosman. I really hope they don't do that in the TV series, because I feel like
That would
that's
be hard to
not-
translate.
This is gonna be so hard to translate. I loved it in the books. I thought it was described very well. I thought the back and forth of Rand and Baalzamon and the correspondence of that being on the like the battlefield on the ground, and how like if Rand was winning, then his army was winning, was very well done, and I loved like that part of it. But I don't want to see that on film of him fighting in the sky. If that makes sense. Like I don't think that would do well on film live action. If that makes sense.
I mean, we probably won't get that in season 1 anyway. I don't
Right.
know.
Season 2, I'm thinking. But
I was gonna say I don't know how they're gonna.
Yeah.
I think the first couple books are gonna be things
Yeah.
that they do more
thought it was
cohesively rather
goofy.
than. The problem, yeah, it's one of these things where it's like there's a lot of stuff that I'm like I don't know how they're gonna translate this to TV, and I'm interested to see how they're gonna do it. I'm pretty hopeful, judging by the trailer, that they're gonna do it well.
Mhm.
Right.
But the first couple books are definitely ways that I'm like, ooh.
there's a lot of stuff that can be done really well.
Well, there's also like how are you going to keep everything in that's important? Because like everything's important.
A lot of stuff's important. Yes.
Because
It's
even
all
this
set up
scene,
for something.
even this scene is important and has like consequences down the line.
Yeah, actually.
Hey, shut up.
I mean, notice like even what happens at the end, like where it's everyone sees this fight in the sky.
It's basically it's
Right, yeah,
it's
we
also
got
a way
that
of
point.
like hey, here's the Dragon Reborn. You know who he is now. He can no longer
it's like
hide
you've
his
seen
identity.
him. Yeah, this is
Right.
him. Yeah.
I don't know if I.
We'll see. TV shows, that's ways away.
Right.
Let's
That's
finish-
November.
Let's finish this out.
Okay.
Okay.
Didn't like how I liked and didn't like how he defeated Baalzamon. I liked that it was set up for to be the keep the sword sheathed or whatever.
Sheathing the sword.
Sheathing the sword. I didn't like how that was the answer, and he was like, "I'm gonna suddenly stab him in the eye." Personally, I thought that was just like we're fighting back and forth, blah blah blah. Sheathe the sword.
I
What are you
mean,
doing? You're crazy.
I mean,
Stab him in the eye.
I feel like it's a way that gives Rand. It's a consequence that pays off throughout the entirety of the series. Again,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
there's an issue, and it's kind of hinted at already that like
The number of like
the wound is not healing.
Yeah, there's a
Right.
it definitely creates a problem while solving that problem in and of itself. So it does definitely encapsulate
Well,
the
there's
sheath to
that.
sword
There's
technique.
that, and then there's
Oh,
also
God.
the two herons, which is I think what you were thinking about. There's a heron burned on both his palms, right? At the
right,
end of
and
that
there's
fight.
like the number of herons, right? And it's like
Yep,
that's a
part of the
prophecy
pro-
too.
Part of the prophecy, correct?
The specifically like number of herons.
The heron's he'll be marked. I would have to look up the prophecy specifically.
Yeah, there's a specific number of herons,
two.
and like
It's one on each palm, basically, that he's going to be marked by.
right, and then like because he got burned by one in a dream, and then he got burned by the other stabbing him in the eye.
Yep.
Okay.
But there's also consequences for like the wound and other stuff, and like him choosing to do that because he does get stabbed,
Yeah,
Right.
and that
which is the whole point of that move
Yeah.
is to
Yeah.
take
and he doesn't
yourself down
actually-
and them too.
And he doesn't actually get like he's not healing from it either, right?
Yeah, because a couple weeks go by after that, and it
Yeah,
said
and
that it's still.
he's still not healed from that. He like Nynaeve
Right.
cannot heal him.
Yeah, and he gets the Moraine after effect, like, oh, this is what happened, by the way, after you passed out.
Yeah.
He gets hobbited, yes.
The debrief.
Yeah,
The Moraine
we
debrief.
get the debrief, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think the Min part is important. We've already talked about the Lanfear part. Min will become more important as we go further into the series. So
Except it just felt really weird.
Let me say this for the whole thing. As the first reader of books 1 and 2, and I haven't started book 3, I'm just so sick of every female character falling in love with Rand as soon as they see them from 14 miles away.
I'll tell you, book 3, don't worry about it. Book 4.
Okay, cool.
um
My masculinity is in the dirt.
so yeah, we'll talk about that later. Okay. Predictions, Marcus, since you've only read book 1 and 2, what do you think is going to happen with
Hit us with them, boy.
just a general story and moving forward?
All right. So this was really early on. This was after the first chapter, the prologue, when we like heard about the Forsaken to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I don't think this is accurate at all. Rand either has to fight or find the 13 new Forsaken and either use them in battle against the Dark One or defeat them before defeating the Dark One. Something about there was 13. I don't know why specifically there was 13 Forsaken.
There's 13 Forsaken.
13
yes.
Forsaken,
Okay.
yeah.
So either he had, in my head, I was like, he has to defeat them or win them over. Was like in my head as soon as I read the prologue or heard the prologue.
I like that one.
Okay, so that's wrong.
I don't know if necessarily wrong. It's just I like that take.
Okay. And then the Forsaken came up later, so I was like, oh, maybe that's kind of close, but nope. Okay.
I mean, there are 14 books. We're on book 3, moving into book 3, so we've got a lot of time.
Yeah.
And I sent this one to Gavin, and he never responded, so I think it could be kind of close. So there's one part right before Rand meets the Amerlian seat. Amerlian seat, where someone at the door jokingly says, now you're going to tell me he speaks in high chant and he wears a crown. So I think that is Matt. I think Matt is some old bloodline king or old bloodline thing who can speak old chant. We got that in the first book. And that's why I said, like, thought he was a king, because she said a crown specifically. So something about Matt being able to speak old chant is going to come up, and that's like who he is, or that's his type of magic.
Because each of the boys has something, right?
Yeah, all the boys have something.
You know the reason I didn't text you back? Because I want you to live with whatever predictions you want to live with.
Okay, that's fair.
Keep reading.
Rand is going to marry every fucking female character ever. That's what my next prediction is.
Not true.
I think it
seems like it sometimes.
There was
there's like 3 female characters that specifically came up at the end of like Min seeing
Min has a prophecy which she sees herself and 2 others standing around.
She specifically said Elaine.
Yeah, she knows one of them is Elaine now.
And she doesn't know who the third one is because the third one hasn't showed up yet.
Correct.
So I'm like, fuck it. He's going to marry all 3. Or he's going to die. I don't know.
I know.
Oh, okay. So the next book, I really think, because I looked at the map, the next book is going to spend a lot of time in Tarbaran, which is where
Tarvalon?
Tarvalon? To the south of where they are right now.
Oh, Tarabon.
Taraban,
Oh,
which is where the man named Boros is
Boris,
from the prologue. We
oh
focused on
shit!
the
I
guy
forgot
named
about
Boros in the prologue, and he got specific instructions to do something, blah blah blah, from Baalzamon. So I think a lot of it is going to be spent in that country, and we're going to learn a lot from that country. But then they're probably going to take a portal gate and end up in fucking Europe. I don't know. Specifically, I think Lan will eventually leave Moraine to become Nynaeve's warden. Warden? Warder. Because that was kind of built up in this book as well. The White Cloaks in the next episode are going to be very important, specifically because I can't remember the guy's name, but he was important. He ran into battle and died, and told a person to, hey, go tell my kid how I died in battle.
He told Bornholt.
Yeah, Bornholt told someone else that he was gonna go die. Bornholt, I think, is the one who died in combat.
Yeah, he died in combat
against the Hawkwings.
Didn't he?
Yes, Bornholt. Because he was in the first book as well. Because he interrogated.
He tells Bayer to go.
Bayer, yes.
Don't worry. The fact that I don't know specifically the names of the characters.
Don't think of it.
Okay, listen. There's
there's certainly consequences for it.
There's literally 1,300 characters in the Wheel of Time. Even I cannot know all of them.
Yeah, my last predictions. This is more of a hope. Is that I really hope Nynaeve has a once again has to choose between trying to save Rand and being like in danger, or trusting an Aes Sedai like she had to at the White Tower, because she specifically chose to trust the Red Aes Sedai Landrian, to go save Rand. So I hope she gets that decision again, and we see what her decision is this time, if that makes sense.
Learn from her mistakes.
Basically, either learn from her mistakes, or also like your character flaws. Really, I'm going to always go to try to save.
I'm gonna go
Rand
always try to go
Three
help
Bulls.
my friends, even if
Right.
there's other consequences for it.
Even to the detriment of this X thing.
Right. Even if I don't trust these Aes Sedais, which the whole past two books, I don't trust them. Which is why Nynaeve is so fucking frustrating to me.
So, I think that's going to be it, guys, unless you guys have like absolute final thoughts.
Unless you want our rankings for these fucking characters.
No, we're way over time.
We're way over time.
We'll talk
I like the
about
rankings for the characters, though.
We'll talk about
Maybe we'll
rankings
grab
eventually.
Logan later and we'll do rankings.
We'll do
There we go.
rankings at some
For a
point.
completely different episode.
I think we should do rankings closer to the end of the series, and we'll do like final rankings of the series maybe after. We
So
finish all
it
of
might
them.
be a good idea to keep track of what we
Yeah.
think of the characters
as
next time,
as
though.
you progress. We'll
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah,
see.
sure.
I guess closing thoughts. I enjoyed the hell out of this book. This
Oh
book
yeah,
is what-
better or worse? What's your favorite? First book or second book? so far?
Absolutely better. This book is what got me excited to get into the third one, and I'm excited to go into the fourth one. Like this is where it starts.
Even though I bitched about this one more, I liked it more than this first. It had higher highs, lower lows.
But the
Does that
highs were
make
so
sense?
damn good.
I
The
can
highs were way better.
I can agree with the higher highs and the lower lows.
We didn't even talk about Loyal.
That's okay. We're gonna talk
You
about Loyal.
sure?
We're gonna talk about Loyal. Don't worry.
Loyal is fucking fantastic, other than that he likes Rand for some fucking reason.
Anyway, I would say that I guess after reading this for a third time, I would say yeah, this is probably better than the first book. I think that there's there are a lot of more higher highs. I think that the thing that pushes it over the edge are those character moments we get that actually have pretty significant emotional impact, and I don't think we get those quite as much within the first book. So
I would love to know your perspective on the characters at this point in the book or in the series.
Yeah, now that you've finished the series, I'm excited to go through
Like
once we're done.
oh, you're like, oh yeah, Loyal's fucking 10 out of 5. He's
okay,
fantastic.
We can talk about my perspective a little bit outside of recording because we are way over time. So I think that's gonna be it for this one. We'll see you guys next time when we do the Dragon Reborn.
Dragon Reborn.
And hopefully we'll have Logan back for that one. So
We should.